think it might be page 3. Mike's on it. Might have been looking at the PDF.
Oh, really?
And I might be wrong, but it's fine. We'll figure it out. I'll look at the document.
Okay.
It's just because like the PDF is different from the
You're talking about
website.
the page.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll just make sure.
Thanks for tipping me off there.
If I can have your attention, please. I see some are standing in the back, but tonight we're non-denominational. So feel free, there's some seats down front if you would like to come down front to be seated.
There's no groom and bride side.
I'd like to take a moment to welcome you to our council meeting this evening. And I would ask, please, if you have cell phones, to please silence them or turn them off at this time. We will stand and have pledge of allegiance by Councilmember Malinowski and prayer by Reverend Danny Howard, the pastor of Covenant Park Church here in Madison.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Still staying? Do we keep staying? Thank you for this opportunity. I have a prayer, Mayor. Right before I pray, I did just want to thank this group of folks up here. Scripture tells us that we are to pray for those in leadership. Oftentimes in my mind, maybe in many of our minds, we go straight to the top of everything. Pray for the president and the senators and the congressmen, all of whom are very important. But I just wanted to share with this group before I pray that when I pray for you, I don't pray for you as someone that doesn't know you. I pray for you as a friend who has been able to live life with you. My first day in Madison, Georgia, I opened a bank account across the street at the Bank of Madison, and this wonderful lady that was a teller, whose name was Marie, said to me, I told her I was a pastor starting a church with about 30 people. She said, "You should really meet my husband." I said, "I'd love to meet him sometime." She said, "Well, he works in the building across the street. Just go in and tell the folks there that Marie sent you over." So I did. I said, "Miss Marie wanted me to meet her husband. His name's Fred." And they said, "Oh, the mayor?" I said, "I didn't know I was meeting the mayor." And we did, and we became friends and have had meals and coffees. Pastor Carrie Reed, you and your husband, the timing of the moments that you and your husband stopped by to pray over me and my wife at our church was nothing short than of the Lord. And I'm grateful for that opportunities and for Molly Bogle going on that mission trip to Arizona that time. Thanks for hanging in. We learned a lot. Y'all, we remember these words from Galatians 6:9. Let us not grow weary in doing good, for in due time we will reap if we do not give up. And I am sure of this, it says later in Philippians 4, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. I want to thank you as a person who gets to live and serve in this city for your leadership and for doing good on behalf of me and my family, a lot of people in our church, but of our town. Can I pray for us, y'all, as we open this time together? Lord, I thank you for this opportunity to be a part of this great city. I thank you for the men and women in this room that are sitting up front, that are making decisions on behalf of so many in our town. Lord, for the men and women that are sitting in the seats as citizens of this town. God, we open by thanking you with gratitude for allowing us to live where we live. Of all of the places in the world, Lord, you've allowed us to live here where we don't just read about our politicians. We don't just hear stories about our elected officials, Lord. We know them. We have meals with them. We pray with them. We go to church with them. Lord, I'm thankful for that opportunity, for the conversations tonight, for the decisions that will be made tonight, Lord, for the sharing that will happen tonight. God, I pray that you lead these conversations, that you would allow us to see so many of the things that are taking place in Madison, Georgia. Lord, things that I did not think were possible 15 years ago. We are grateful. Help us, Lord, to be kind to one another, to love one another, to make decisions well, to honor one another, and to remember you in everything that we do. We thank you for this night. And God, I ask your blessing over the conversations and decisions that are about to take place. We pray all these things, Lord, in the holy name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Again, for those who are standing in the back, there are about 5 seats up front. If you would like to come down front to be seated. Is there anything to be added to our agenda for this evening from our councilman? If not, if we could get a motion and a second to approve on our consent agenda minutes of January the 9th, January the 12th, January the 30th, and February the 9th.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Are there any more discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Opposers, none, vote unanimously. Thank you so very, very much. This time, we would ask Jill to come, Molly and Jill to come, talk about our transportation, Madison on the Move.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me tonight. Ken is just going to pull that up. All right. So just as a reminder, this is the conversation that we had at your last hearing, but the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval with the following conditions, clarifications, or changes. Emphasis on prioritization of the bypass, reassessment of proposed alterations to the triangle, ensuring the landscape median along South Main is not contiguous, and eliminating all proposed changes to the transportation network within the HPO. Your conversation resulted in the following 5 recommendations that then staff went to determine what that looked like within very concrete changes to the document. And so those were, again, emphasized prioritization of bypass construction, phase alterations to the triangle to prevent or minimize vehicular traffic traveling north on Walker Circle, ensure proposed landscape median along South Main is not contiguous, mitigate visual intrusions of transportation network improvements within the HPO, and add construction of a downtown parking deck to the implementation matrix. So I'm going to take you through each one of those and provide my recommendations for what that looks like in terms of actual edits to the document. And these are by page number. The page numbers are document page numbers, not PDF pages. So be looking at the numbers in the bottom right or left-hand corner if you're following along on the printed page. So the first is emphasize prioritization of the bypass. To do that, I am suggesting that on page 33, we move reroute traffic away from downtown and neighborhoods to alleviate impacts to noise, safety, and the small town experience to the top of the list under transportation plan goals. On page 47, I am suggesting that we shift northern truck bypass and southern truck bypass bullets to top of the list under key projects. Pages 80 through 81, I am suggesting that we renumber items CS5 and CS6, that's that north and southern truck bypass, to CS1 and 2 respectively, move those to the top of the table and renumber all following items in current order listed. For number 2, phasing alterations to the triangle, I am suggesting on page 61 that we remove Section A alterations so that intersection of South Main and Eatonton Road actually doesn't have any changes shown on it, and that we delete that page on 62, which is really just a blow up of that small area. We can always come back in the future if you all, once we institute the other elements of the triangle, if you all want to address that and consider what your options are there, we can always go back to that. We have what's there now as an option from a previous draft, And we can also assess other opportunities. For ensuring the proposed landscape median is not contiguous, I'm suggesting on page 47 that we change language under Key Projects Main Street bullet to convert the paved continuous two-way turn lane to an intermittent green landscape median. On page 55, I'm suggesting that we change the first sentence under Main Street proposed to this retrofit involves transforming the continuous two-way turn lane into an intermittent landscape median. And if it's not evident, anything in red is the change there for you. I wanted to redline it so you could see it. On page 80, I'm suggesting that we change CS1 to project, or CS.1 project description to Main Street median, convert CTWTL to intermittent green planted median. Number 4, mitigate visual intrusions of these transportation network improvements within the HPO. I'm suggesting that on page 45, we change the first sentence under bike routes boulevards to establishing a bike route involves installing wayfinding signage to indicate the route and guide riders on where to turn, so taking out those pavement markings. Again, on page 45, changing the sentence under key projects, establish bike routes to add minimal signage and create corresponding map, taking out those street markings. On page 79, changing GB1 project description to bike routes with minimal signage and map, again, taking out street markings there. For that 5th element of adding construction of a downtown parking deck, I am suggesting that we add a CS.7 to read downtown parking deck, construct deck. Those are the cost estimates, phase timeline, responsible parties, and possible funding sources that I am aware of for that item. It was brought to my attention after the hearing that I misunderstood your intention for the Burney Street Railroad crossing to not only be pedestrian but also vehicular. And so I've suggested 2 changes here. Minimal changes needed to encompass all routes of travel. So page 42, change proposed pedestrian railroad crossing under legend to just proposed railroad crossing. And on page 78, change PI.3 project description to railroad crossing to Canaan, bike, pedestrian, and vehicular crossing over railroad tracks. Due just to the timing of the document and the changes that have occurred with federal funding, state funding, our current budgeting updates, we are suggesting the following changes to the phasing and timeline of each of these sections. Most of them are just pushing them out a little bit, except for those policy items where we're actually trying to bring those forward. Those are the items that cost the least. We can do those in-house, and we can actually bring those to bear much quicker. And then some of these are simply shifts to the timeline that we received from GDOT on the various tabs that we have. And then 2 that we noticed while we were going through those phasing and timelines, 2 additions that needed to be made to this I-1, possible funding sources to add grants and donations to general fund there. Those are my suggestions, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about that and go back to any of the slides that you might like to see.
And I believe at our last public hearing we had on this, or just comments that we had, we asked staff to go back and make some changes. And I believe staff has made the change that we have asked them to do. So I don't know if the council member have any comments that they would like to make tonight. We know this is probably a 20-year plan. There's nothing that's going to happen tomorrow. We're looking at years and years down the road. Yeah. Okay. That coming from my staff, from my council members tonight.
Yeah, Mayor, I had one, you might have addressed it, Molly, with the closing, the potential closing of the 2 railroad crossings and the opening of the one in Canaan. I did prepare a single sentence. You've kind of covered, you cleared up the misunderstanding about the pedestrian as opposed to vehicular. I don't know if you really need this. Basically, what I put together was a 1 sentence to be added to the transportation plan under key projects, and it was to basically direct or authorize our city manager to look into the feasibility and advisability of those 2 closings and the 1 opening. He's not authorized to make any changes, just simply to gather some information as to what is involved, whether that's a good idea or a bad idea. Money's always an issue as well. Is the council interested in adding that, or do you feel comfortable in what Molly's presented in those last few changes?
And I guess will it make any difference, Molly, if we added this. I think you covered it well.
No, your city manager is well within his right to make those investigations, and so we can absolutely itemize it in the plan if you'd like to, but not having it here doesn't preclude him from doing that. And so it's really up to you all if you'd like to see that itemized in here.
Do you have any comments you would like to make, Judge?
No, I certainly understand the importance of both of these issues, the protection of our unique historic district and the potential opening up of something that an entire community in Madison suffered with the closing back in the early 70s. So I applaud Molly for the language that you have there, and I think that Mr. Joyce's language adds credence to this issue, and would think that it would only strengthen the document.
If I could just, this references page 28, and I believe that's the PDF page perhaps. And so
Yeah.
I just want to confirm, are we looking at that under the complete streets section? I believe that might be the case. The key projects under complete streets, that's page 47.
Ms. Nomura just kind of corrected me on that, and it looks like I got the wrong page number there. So whatever the key projects area is that on 47 and 48?
There are key projects on all of these, and I'm assuming we don't want it under just pedestrian infrastructure, and so what I'm suggesting is under the complete street section is probably the most appropriate
Yes.
for that.
I appreciate your suggestion. That
Okay.
works just fine. Is everyone okay with adding that?
I'm okay with that, and thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
If there are no more comments from the council, we can get a motion and a second to approve Madison on the move.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Madison on the Move with the changes spoken about by Molly and Eric's addition to the plan.
Second.
Are there any more discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Opposed, is none, vote unanimously. Thanks so much, Molly.
Thank
Lot
you
of
so
work-
much.
A lot of work went into this. Thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Sure.
I've consulted with the city attorney and have been advised that I'm required to recuse myself from acting on or being part of the next agenda items.
Okay.
So with that, I'll follow the protocol and leave the room and look for you to call me back when we get done.
I'll ask the clerk to come get you when we're finished. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sorry.
Jeez. You don't,
I'm making myself known here.
don't break the dais on the way out. For Rick's benefit, is there planning to be any executive session at the end? Does
It's
he-
not, no, but he's gonna come back before the end.
Oh, he will?
After the end, we can
Just to
ask him
close
to
out the
come back,
meeting?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But once again, we'd like to welcome each of you to our meeting tonight. But before we start our public hearing, our staff will make a report. And I would ask whether you're here for or against, that you remain civil and respect each other's opinion. During the public hearing, I would also ask that you not direct your questions to staff. We appreciate what our staff have done. A lot of hard work has gone into this meeting for tonight. I would ask that you, at times, you will respect the HPC and the Planning and Zoning Board decision that they've made. Do not direct any questions to them. I would ask that you direct all of your questions to this mayor and council. They will be the ones to make the decision tonight. So at that, I will ask Molly to come, Jill to come, and get us ready for our public hearing.
Sure. So we have 3 zoning items this evening. I'll present them differently. I just wanted to put them all on the screen because they are related to the same project, but y'all will have 3 different motions for tonight. So we do have a conditional use a variance to building dimensions as well as a non-residential occupancy minimum variance request as well. So we'll start with the conditional use. The applicant is applying for a conditional use to operate a commercial parking lot at this property. Commercial parking lots are permitted conditionally in the professional limited/limited commercial district. This property, this parcel has functioned as a parking lot, but the applicant is looking to pave it and expand it more towards Pine Street to provide more parking. And this is the site plan. The site plan shows 52 parking spaces, and the applicant has reported that the proposed lot will support parking for the proposed residential units in the mixed-use project that we'll discuss later with the variances. And then it will also provide parking for downtown patrons with room available. The proposed plan appears to meet interior landscaping buffer requirements and impervious surface area percentages, and as well as the remaining standards of section 1125.5. At the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, they recommended approval unanimously for approval of the conditional use permit for the parking lot. Due to the fact that all the standards of 1125.5 appear to be met. But that concludes this portion of the zoning staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Jill before we go into our public hearing? If not, the public hearing is open for 2025-033.con, conditional use M18063A. Public hearing, we have 15 minutes on this particular item, conditional use. If there's anyone here that would like to speak for this conditional use, please come to the podium, state your name, and your address, please.
Pull your microphone down.
Molly, I heard at one point they might combine all the time together. So we're doing 15 minutes?
Right.
A point of order. Good evening, Mayor and
Good
Council.
evening.
Thanks for
Good
having us.
evening.
Shall I only address the conditional use, or as these are interrelated, shall I go ahead and tell the whole story?
Go ahead.
I would ask Tony to speak to that.
It's really your presentation, but we're only dealing right now with the conditional use on parking.
Okay.
So I would sort of stick to that and the reasons for it.
My name is Preston Snyder, 488 North Main. I hear that. I'm going to try to summarize in the interest of time, and I think that they are all related. So I'm going to hold forth a bit longer. Let's see. Where's Gabe? Have you got a slide? I do. Okay.
Ken, is there any way you could put their presentation up on the screen? That's okay.
Well, if it needs 15 minutes, we're all in trouble.
Tick tock. This project started with a fire. This project started with a loss of a structure that also took out 4 businesses at the same time. I stood there for about 8 hours and watched our folks try to fight that fire and watched it burn effectively to the ground. The newspaper called it downtown devastated, and I think for a while there it certainly was. We focused on getting our people back to work once we knew everyone was safe. We did what we could to get our Betty Jean's folks to work down the street in the event space. We worked on getting the Sinclair scrubbed and back open as fast as we could. And as fast as we could do it, we got Cindy's Market back open as well. That took a little longer. But it was important to us to get those back open and show that we were not whipped by this, and that this community was resilient and we could get past it. It mattered. We operated out of our real estate office, mobily out of homes, jumping around from loft to loft for a while. We managed to find a place to land there. Once we got stabilized, we decided it's time to rebuild, and this was within a couple of weeks. And I didn't put out a call for architects. I went to the architects that were the right ones to look at this project, and that was Arcolab. They'd worked with me on all of the projects that I've done in town. You all know Joe Smith, who served on the HPC, who's one of the finest preservation architects in the state of Georgia. He teaches at a UGA. They did an incredible job on our city hall, restoring that sensitively. They were the right ones to talk with. I grabbed those guys. They were willing to do it. We went downtown. We talked to planning, and we sat down at a table, about a half dozen of us, with a combined experience of a couple of centuries in planning and in zoning and in historic preservation and in development. And the question on the table wasn't, how do we wring the most money out of this site? The question was, what's the best thing to do with the site in the historic context for this community and within the four corners of the zoning ordinance? And that's what drove this design decision. By right, on this site, we could do 60,000 square feet. That's not where we've ended up. We've proposed a little over 40,000 square feet. It's a 3-story building. It is inspired by the Turnell Butler Hotel that sat on this site, which defines the nature of the site. The site's 100 feet wide, 103 feet wide. It is because the hotel sat there and it ran from one corner to the other. Our zoning contemplates 60-foot wide buildings downtown because that's typical. This is not typical. Therefore, we're asking for a variance. The historical reference, the existing building that was there had already been determined 15 years before not to be of historical significance. It had changed too much. It had an auto court in front. So with those parameters, we undertook figuring out what the best thing for this site was, and something that was in the context of downtown Madison and not out of scale with it. So we didn't replicate that past building. We wanted something that respectfully gave it a nod and acknowledged it while we were looking forward to the future with a modern structure, which is what's required under the Department of Interior standards. That led us to a massing request for variance because it didn't fit in the same box that most of the zoning did. The massing reflects the historic width of the hotel site. The parcel has always been wider. The highest point on our parapet is about 42 feet, 8 inches. That is higher than we initially proposed. HPC asked us to make it higher. They wanted a piece of it to be even higher to break up the facade. We accommodated that request. Both planning and zoning and HPC unanimously approved the massing. This conditional use for parking is contemplated under the P2 zoning. We happen to have that available. It seems exceptionally complementary to this piece of land because it puts us in a position to provide all of our parking that's required on site. That use also was approved unanimously by both boards. Our project provides 1.25 parking spaces per residential unit, which is consistent with code. What it also does is it creates a parking lot that allows shared uses during the day. It further supports the retail that we're putting back, and we're only putting back the retail that we lost. By right, we could put back 30,000 square feet of retail. We don't need 30,000 square feet of speculative commercial space. We don't need more zero parking required commercial space. We're trying to put these businesses back in business. If anything, we're diminishing the load on the city because we're creating shared parking at the same time, and all of the parking required under residential is provided on site. It's a self-sustaining site to that extent. There's business urgency. These businesses were displaced. The site in its current condition is uninsurable. So at this point, I'm the insurance company. It's not a finished site. It's not a site under construction. You can't get a policy on it. It's not the best way to run a business. We're hanging on there, but this can't be done interminably. This is not a sustainable condition. We've got to get on with something. So there is some business urgency. We also cannot complete the drawing of any insurance proceeds until we've gotten the site completely demolished and underway under a new development, which is another challenge from a business standpoint. We can talk about economic impact, and not just of us personally, but on the community. This is an approximately $10 million development that's all privately funded, that's going to be invested in the community in this project. That should have an approximately $17 million impact from the construction activity once you apply the multipliers and look at the ripples that are going to be impacting us. The total economic impact over the first year is estimated at about $20 million in our community. More than $3 million in recurring annual economic activity is projected, including sales and property taxes. 35 to 55 ongoing jobs supported. It restores the Sinclair, Betty Jean's, and Community Roots businesses that have, at this point, become part of the community, part of the fabric. There's a housing need in this community. The residential homes will support workforce and life cycle housing. So these are the folks who teach at the schools and work at the fire department and work in retail and are entrepreneurs who can work from home. We estimate these rents to be in the 1200s to the low to mid 2000s, and that's consistent with the other 100+ units that we have in town. This is a proven concept for us. When you look at the average gross incomes in Madison, you've got, for a single person, about $49,000 based on the 23 census, about $109,000 for a household based on the 23 census. When you apply a 30% housing factor to those numbers, we're in the sweet spot. This is exactly who this is for. Not everyone can live in a house in the historic district. We're trying to create some options for folks who are working here, who are contributing to this community. Traffic, we did an independent traffic study. That study has determined that we're going to put about 3 to 5 additional vehicles per hour on the street based on this being added. And that's at the peak usage. My sense is we can manage that. This is roughly 1 additional car every several minutes. Further, mixed-use redevelopment is minimizing trips because you've got more opportunities to leave the car parked. You live upstairs. You can walk downstairs and get a piece of fish to cook that night. You can go do your shopping here. You still have to get in your car. We're not trying to pretend that, but there's a lot of options that allow you not to have to. So you're going to diminish traffic, and that's typical of a mixed-use development. We've also got some environmental responsibilities on this. And again, back to the nature of this hotel and how it shaped the site. When it burned in 1930, they pushed all of the rubble into the dining room, which was the basement floor of this. So you actually had 5 floors. There were 3 above ground, a ballroom on top, and then a sub-basement that was a dining room. All the rubble got pushed in there. When we bought the property, we determined that it was hot with lead. So we put it in the brownfield program with the Environmental Protection Division of the state of Georgia. We developed a prospective purchaser corrective action plan. We've executed that plan to the extent we can at this point. We cleaned up all of the site outside of the building footprint, but always with an understanding that upon redevelopment, the balance of the site has to be cleaned up. That has to happen now. We're committed to that. That's going to happen. It should happen in the context of a redevelopment. We hope that that's where we're heading with this. This project received unanimous approval from Planning and Zoning, Historic Preservation Commission. It's not an expansion, it's a redevelopment of something that was lost. It restores businesses, it adds housing, it strengthens downtown Madison, it appropriately references our history while we're still looking forward. I would ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Ms. Ziegler?
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, I'm Kathy Sickert with Smith, Kimbrell, and Russell, and I represent the applicant. I'm going to address only the conditional use permit, or at least try to confine my remarks to it, and I want to make 2 points as a consequence of that. The first is, if you could put up the old hotel site plan. Where'd he go? Gabe? He ran. I know he ran. He's going to put up something that will help me. There. No.
You want the old tax map?
Yeah, the Sanborn. The hotel site.
That'd you got the sand work?
It's in there. There we go. The point I wanted to make initially is that there has. This is fun. Can I get some extra time for technological difficulties? Aha! Don't make it disappear. The point I wanted to make is that for quite some time on this site, there already was parking at the rear, and there was in fact parking for 40 spaces. So this is not something that is a new request. It is something that historically has been on this property, and actually I think we are probably improving it because of the landscape buffers that we will add and the like to make it a more attractive kind of design for use of the off-site parking. The second point I'd like to make is that the study itself, the city itself, Main Street please, the Main Street group in association with the City Planning Department did a study of parking on the square and elsewhere in downtown. And they came to some interesting conclusions. They performed this in 2024, and it was over a 7-day period of time. And what they did is they went around from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. and counted the number of park spaces in the square and other areas surrounding this property. The average number of parked vehicles per hour was 152, which translates to 48.9% of the total 314 spaces available. The single busiest hour had 248 parked vehicles, or 79% of the spaces that are available. And the busiest hours of the week, not surprisingly, were lunchtime, noon, 1 p.m., and 2 p.m. These hours would be off-peak for the residents who would live in this particular project. So my point is that although we are putting a use here that will require parking, it is one which will actually enhance the ability to use downtown. If we built this whole project as a commercial project when we could go up to 60,000 square foot, we could do 30,000 square feet, we would not have to park anything. Because we are providing parking and enable it to be shared on off-peak hours, we are actually helping in terms of the downtown. Although the study that was done by the city itself, that's partially the slide, indicates that it isn't necessary in any event. So we believe that there is no problem with parking at the present. We are not exacerbating it, and in fact, this project, because it represents an underutilization of the property as opposed to what could be there, is a better project in terms of preserving parking rights in the square. So we ask that you go ahead and approve what has basically been on this site before, which is the parking to the rear of the facility.
Thank you, Ms. Ziegler. Is there anyone else here to speak for this condition of use? Please come.
Mayor and Council, I'm Sherry Ann Collins. I live at 503 North Main, and I'm here in support of the proposed multipurpose building project by Thomas Preston Real Estate. I'll acknowledge that part of my support is personal. I care deeply about Cindy and Preston and what they've meant to Madison's vibrancy in the 6 years I've lived here. But even when I set that aside, I believe this project deserves approval for 3 simple reasons: jobs, housing, and tax revenue. First, jobs. If this block is bulldozed and sits vacant for a year or more, employees will be displaced. From what I understand, the current structure is uninsurable in its condition. Delaying progress does not protect anyone. It creates uncertainty for working families. Second, housing. Madison needs more mid-priced housing for middle-income residents, teachers, hospitality workers, retail employees, the very people who keep our town running. If we want a thriving business community, we need attainable housing options. Third, tax revenue. We've heard concerns about the city's financial outlook recently. Responsible development that expands the tax base is part of a sustainable solution. I attended the P&Z meeting and listened very carefully. I came away confident that the proposal complies with policy and that due diligence has been done. Last summer, when a fiery tragedy struck downtown, this community stepped up to support Cindy and Preston. Preston and Cindy stepped up too, reopening businesses quickly and keeping people employed. That's the kind of investment and resilience we should encourage in Madison. I respectfully ask for you to support this project. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else here to speak for this conditional use?
Yeah, it's just the conditions.
Yeah. Conditional use parking, yeah.
Is that
I have some
parking
handouts
related?
here. I don't have enough for everyone, so if you can share it.
Can we-
And at the moment, we're just talking about
This is
conditional
just
use.
parking.
I'm sorry?
Sorry, Mayor.
Is this for parking, the
This is-
conditional use?
Only parking?
Yes.
Anyone else want to speak for this conditional use? If not, okay. Mr. Conrad?
Mike Conrad's 255 North Main Street. As always, thank you for your service to our community. You've heard me talk before about tax base and making sure we have a balanced tax base. This will help. The parking will be helpful for the community downtown. Daytime, folks are going to be going to work, so the spaces will be open for our tourists who come in town. We love them. They come, spend their money, and leave. These people will also, who are living there, going to provide additional revenue for our downtown businesses, which is desperately needed for our continued success and growing that tax base that we need. We need these folks downtown, and this is going to provide that option. We've got somebody who is vested, who has invested. We know the product and the quality product that he builds. It's a great opportunity for the city, and I am very supportive of what he's trying to accomplish, and I ask for your support as well.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else here to speak for this conditional use? Sure, come forward. For parking.
Is this just for the parking or?
Just parking. Additional use for parking. That's
Okay,
all
I'll
we're,
wait
that's
on
all
the
we're
other
gonna
stuff.
vote on right this
All right,
minute.
I'll come back, so I'll take my time.
Anyone else here to speak for this conditional use parking? If not, does anyone here to speak against this conditional use parking?
All right, my name is Pat Reams, and I own the 5 businesses down at the end of Hancock that I'm neighbors with the hospitality group. And all I can tell you that he's been a neighbor from hell. He has no consideration, disrespectful of my businesses. He does not have one piece of parking. At 5 minutes to 5, I had to kick one of his employees out of back of my chop house parking because I asked her, "Where are you going?" She said, "Well, I'm going to work, at the hospitality." I said, "Please move." She didn't move. She went in and apparently asked somebody, then she came back out and moved. I've had to deal with this every day. And if people see me on Saturdays and Sundays sitting in my truck, sitting there trying to protect my parking for my customers, those are my parking spots, my customers. And I have to explain to my neighbors and my friends that want to park there because they want to go to Betty Jean's that day that, hey, if you don't come to the chop house, don't go to the gym, don't come to the senior center, don't go to the aerobic studio, you need to move. And they just don't understand. They get pissed off. They threaten to, not come to my businesses just because I protect my parking. I own 285 parking spots down there. And I am probably one of the most courteous person. I let the Morgan County, they have 60 people
plus they have 30 work vehicles I let park there at no cost, at no cost. All the people on Main Street and Jefferson Street that their people take their parking spots up, I went to every one of them and told them they could park in my parking deck. You know, I've got Amelia's, I've got, you know, all the people at Boyd's, State Farm, Lee Abney, all of them that the city, that Philip used to write up because they park in front of their parking spots because a tenant can't park there, but his employees can park there. And his people in the apartments up above the restaurants park there. They're parked in front of the county building every day, all day long. And I know some of you have seen me out every Saturday and Sunday, which is the two busiest days for both of us, protecting my parking lot. And it's been a problem. And what's going to happen, you're giving them 52 parking spots. Right now, they don't have any, and they're encroaching on me. What if I shut all my parking down to everybody in the town, the county, the people on Main Street, the people on Jefferson Street? Then you're going to have 190 more people looking for parking spaces. But I take it the courtesy to let them, to relieve some pressure off the city. And I don't see anybody seeing that. All I see is that Mr. Reams, he's a problem. You know, he thinks he owns the city and all that nonsense. Well, I own 285 parking spots, which belongs to me, and I protect my businesses. And I don't know how much, a lot of you people know me, but I give every profit back from all 5 of those businesses back to the community. I've donated over $4 million to this community, including a $500,000 piece of land for the fire station to this community, a $2 million piece of property to the hospital, fire trucks, or fire trailers. I've been more than generous with the profits that I've made from these restaurants and get disrespected on my parking lot. And it's because of their, you know, being next to me and disrespecting. You know, I've never talked to the guy. I've went to his office 4 times and they won't even go get him for me. I've talked to his managers and all they say is, well, it's your problem. Well, yeah, it is my problem. Then when I come to everybody and say, hey, what do I do? Well, it's your problem. You do what you got to. So then I put a sign up. Then I get a darn citation for put a sign up. I need a break on the weekend. I mean, I'm there. I can't even spend time with my family because I have to protect my businesses. And if you guys can't see that or understand that, you know, we've got a major problem. And like I said, I'll cut my parking decks off to everybody. And, you know, I'll just let my business use what they need in the back. Then you'll have 190 more vehicles that you guys need to find a place for them to park. From the county buildings to all the tenants out front on Main Street, tenants on Jefferson Street, and whoever else. You know, all the tag people, when you come pay your taxes or get a tag, I don't raise a problem of them parking in my parking lot. You know, so I don't know. You know, right now, you know, he doesn't have one parking spot in all the businesses he's got. He's got employees at 5 minutes to 5. I had to kick one out of my parking lot in back of the Chop House. And, you know, it's like this every day. And it costs me business, it costs me friends, because I ask people, please, do not park here. But people don't understand. You know, whatever. You know, you guys are going to do what you feel like you're going to do anyway. You know, right now you're talking of letting him have 52 parking spots ain't going to be enough for the apartments. Everybody should know that. And if you guys think 52, and you have the chance to change that. What they're using is this C1. Well, I ain't got to have parking for the retail. I ain't got to, and the one lady said, well, I'm doing you a big favor because we're providing 52. You know, people, you know, can come and retail people can come. That's a bunch of nonsense. You need to make them, you have the chance now, today, to make sure they have adequate parking. You know, the other issues of them parking in my park, that's my issue. That's not what we're here for today. But you guys need to know that I'm about my wit's end on protecting my parking lot. I've had guns pulled on me. I've been pushed, separated my shoulder, which I still ain't got fixed. And, you know, I'm about at my end with it. So if you guys don't want to do the right thing, you need to, and the other stuff I don't agree with, but that's not what we're talking about. And they can do what they want. And you just need to make sure they have adequate parking, which they have employees. You know, he says he's got close to 100 employees that worked there the last time. Today on the film, it says 60 or something. They need to have 20 spots for their employees to park. They need to have 10 more spots for the apartments up above the restaurants right now, because they all park in front of the county building. This Saturday, there's 10 of them there. The Explorer with the German Shepherd on the back, that's there every day. You know, I've got, well, I ain't gonna ramble on. He needs to at least have 120 to 150 parking spots for that development that he's building. He should be responsible for the restaurants, where they used to have the code, one chair or one parking spot for every 4 chairs. You need to enforce that again, because he has no parking for any of the restaurants. And, you know, it just don't make sense. You know, I'm a businessman too. And to have 4 restaurants within 400 feet and no parking, that just don't make a bit of sense. Unless, you know, they're taking advantage of the city. You know, if that's the case, I'll close my parking and I'll use city parking. It just doesn't make sense. So, all right, well, I've rambled on enough. You know what the deal is, and if you guys pass this and only let him get away with 52 parking spots, you know, I've got to put up with it for 2 or more 3 years while it's being built, but after that, he'll be parking in the chicken wing place, he'll be parking in Chris Hodges's Madison, and he'll be parking all down that road, his people will be, just like they're parking right now. And I'm sure he's told you that, well, they're supposed to park over. Nobody in their right mind is going to travel 5 times the distance to park their car when they can park right in front of their apartment. And that's what's happening right now. It's happening right now. Right now. All right, sorry about that.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Anyone else here that would like to speak against this conditional use parking?
All right, sorry about that.
Oh, hey, no problem. I appreciate it. Linda Glover, 763 Markham's Drive, Madison. I stand before you a 38-year commercial real estate professional. I spent 30 years as an associate member of the Appraisal Institute. I come to these meetings and we talk about everything but zoning, everything but the code. I appreciate Preston and his family. I appreciate what he has brought to this city. However, we have talked about nothing that applies. The P2 parcel is a transition parcel. It is there so the congestion of downtown is relieved into the housing areas. He owns the parcel, and I have come up with an alternative development that requires only 2 parcels, no variances, no conditional uses. The fire is not a hardship. The brownfield is not a hardship. Rehoming his businesses is not a hardship. Increased insurance costs are not a hardship. These are business and economic hardships. When we talk about variances, we talk about land hardships. This is difficult to talk about without the other 2 parts, just like Preston said, because talking about the P2 opens the door to something that is called siloing. And if you have read your Georgia procedure laws, you know that we cannot do this. It's putting the horse behind the cart. We cannot talk about a parking lot until we talk about the improvement, because we don't even need the parking lot until we talk about the improvement. I have spent 15 years in litigation. I spent 15 years in commercial review. My job is compliance. My job is following the rules. There are no rule following going on here. A professional parking study, not a traffic study. A traffic study is not a parking study. And that parking study from 2024 does not tell you what 2026 is. if you take a look at, like the Chop House gentleman just said, and you apply a standard parking analysis on what it is he is presenting, and I'm telling you, there's no such thing as mixed use in our code, so don't even listen to that word. It is a commercial building in RC1 zone. And with the restaurant and the retail, and yes, I say, put the businesses back. We need them. I say, give us some apartments. We need them. I say, yes, bring the jobs. But a code-compliant project is possible. We don't need to waste the P2 parcel into a surface parking lot, which creates issues with impervious surfaces and runoff. It is down gradient. The creek is down gradient from that lot, Horse Branch. Runoff, you see how it rains here in the summer? You can imagine gasoline, all kinds of things running off that surface parking lot. So back to the professional study. We need 120 to 180 parking spaces if you count the restaurant seats, if you count the square footages. It is not 52, and it's not 48, or whatever number he had proposed before. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your comments. Is there anyone else here to speak against?
Hi, I'm Carol Winslow, 394 North Main Street. In addition to the traffic volume, transportation engineers can also help with parking generation. The Institute of Traffic Engineers has published documentation to guide what to expect based not only on the types of businesses or housing, but also based on where these are located. These could be a city center core, dense multi-use urban, general urban/suburban, and rural. The first two involve fewer requirements for parking due to the existence of mass transit. Madison does not have mass transit. We have no subway, no passenger train, no regular bus system. Thus, more residents use automobiles and parking needs are higher here. I think that Madison would more likely be in the general urban to suburban category, but an engineer could determine this for you. Three things to think about with parking: supply, demand, and future improvement costs. Supply, how much parking do we have in public parking? How much do we have in private parking? And on the demand, based on the square footage and type of business in our location, given our current position as a destination for shopping, and to a lesser extent, a destination for dining, how much is the demand for parking here currently? How many downtown businesses use donated parking from the privately owned spaces? I think we've heard about that. Unlike with a leased parking lot, donated parking could change quickly. Does our current parking supply support the demand? What is our desired plan for our commercial district? Do we want the jobs to remain along with the property and sales tax revenue of the existing businesses? Do we want future commercial growth in the commerce district? A parking study, such as those other cities have published online, because we can't afford to do one, could help explain these issues to us. If we do want to keep our businesses and the jobs they support, please consider doing analysis on what we have, what we need, and how we can afford to do the support for our businesses prior to approving more residential use into the commercial district. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak against this conditional use for parking? If not,
Mr. Mayor,
sure.
My name's Molly Ash. We live at 1366 Veranda Park Drive. Moved here a few years ago. I've spoke to y'all before on some stuff. And I'm a little, when we talked about the conditional use of the parking, if you don't do the parking, this whole thing is, you know, one thing I would like to say is that, and I mentioned this to the Planning Commission the other day, as mayor of my town for a long time, I'd have given anything to have had a Preston Snyder developing in my town, because what he does here is so good. But we're talking parking, people. he's providing the parking for his residential units and some overflow for his commercial. Most of the stuff, other than the chop house, most everybody's parking on the streets and everything. He's only doing enough square footage for his thing that would probably limit the amount of parking that would be needed. This is a great project, what he's looking at. But he will have to have the conditional use of the parking has to be done before anything could be done. So that's why I got up now to say, I was going to wait and say my comments when it came into conditional use of the, but I've been, like I said, in city government, but I've done 30 years of commercial.
I'm sorry,
real estate.
sir, time's up.
Okay. Oh, I thought I was right. I'm sorry. I was sitting on the groom side. I didn't know which one we were looking at.
Thank you for your comments. Kathy?
Thank you. I just want to make a couple observations from the remaining time that we have. And the first is that we not just filed a full traffic study. That study did include parking. It's not required by your code, but we did it. And the study also supports the conclusions that I've shared with you earlier. So this is not speculation on our part. We, number two, are parked at code. Your code says 1.25 spaces per unit. We have 54 spaces, which is actually more than what is needed to serve the 40 units in here, but we are parked at code. We are not making it up. It is the code requirement, and I suspect the staff would confirm that. It is entirely speculative to say that we need 120 spaces. That's not what our transportation engineers determined, and it is the only evidence that you truly have of what is likely to happen here. And if parking is a problem in this city now, this helps. Bottom line is that because the lot will be vacant during the day, then the retail users on site can go ahead and use the lot. If Mr. Reams is having a problem, it should reduce his problem. We are providing more parking. But last and not least, you just passed your Madison in Motion plan. Your plan itself that you just passed at page 21 says that parking should be reduced or eliminated for mixed uses. Think about that for a second. They're trying to get people out of the automobile. They're trying to get folks to use the things that are around them to the fullest extent that is possible. And that's a study you just adopted. So from that perspective, we ask that you go ahead and approve the parking CUP that we are requesting.
Thanks for your comments. Everyone else here to speak against? If not, this public hearing is closed, and this comes back to our council for comments and a vote.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Sure.
It has to do with the, did you say you're 48% usage right now from the study that you did? Mm-hmm. I'm sorry.
That was not our study, that was a Main Street study. But yes, that's exactly what they're saying. If I can have that slide again, I'm happy to pull it up for you.
If I hear complaints about downtown, it's generally a lack of parking. And it surprises me to hear that kind of a statistic. I guess you're saying it's our statistic?
Yeah, I mean, it was done by your planning department and by Main Street. So it's not something that was done for us or by me or anyone else.
It was done in 2024.
I got you.
Which may have shifted numbers a little bit.
Can you read that? Can you see it? That's a summary of what was contained in that report that was done in 2024.
Wow.
Does that answer your question?
I guess that answers my question. Is it significant that it was a 2-year-old study, or is that?
It was late 2024, as Preston just said, but Since that point in time, you've also had a number of closures on the square that did not exist then, including these that burned in 2025. So that took into account what was there at that time, and there was more retail space at that time than there is now.
Gotcha. I guess my other question is about, maybe we can kill two birds with one stone here, as we talk about a parking garage in the traffic plan. Have you ever thought about a parking garage? I don't know how much a parking garage would cost. I think it might satisfy a lot of people, yes, sir. How much would that cost?
Can you come to the podium, please?
Sorry. I'm not an expert, but parking one spot in a parking garage can cost anywhere from $25,000 to $35,000, and I've heard bigger numbers than that per space. So.
Listen, I understand, I appreciate it. We could have proposed something with a deck, but that didn't feel like Madison does. I mean, we stuck with something because we happen to have an acre sitting there. We stuck with something that would allow us to balance the use with just surface parking on the existing site, and then balance the number of units against that, so that we get the right balance, working with the acre that we've got to work with there. That's where we wanted to be. I've heard it's an Atlanta project. I've done Atlanta projects. I've done downtown Decatur. We built the first apartments there that had been built in 60 years. And on a similarly sized lot, we built 7 stories of post-tension concrete, 2 layers of parking deck, 2 separate buildings. I mean, that is an Atlanta project. That's density. That's not what we were trying to do here. It's a small-scale approach, and we're trying to keep it that way. So as to developing a parking deck, I'm not sure, as a practical matter, that would be the business I'd want to be in. And I didn't think it was appropriate for this site, or we otherwise might have proposed it.
Mayor, I have a question for staff, if I could. What we're doing right now, we're simply approving a conditional use for this particular property to build a parking lot. We're not approving a site plan. We're not approving because that's all dependent on what happens with the next phase. We have a ordinance, as was mentioned earlier, of 1 1/4 parking places per apartment. The debate of whether that's sufficient or not, I think, is up for another time. Our current zoning, whether it's a good plan or not, requires only 1 1/4 per apartments. That's what is kind of in the plan, but we're not approving the specifics of that. If it turns out that some of the dimensional variances aren't approved, you wouldn't need as big of a parking lot because you wouldn't have as many apartments. So I just want people to understand it's simply the concept of making that, allowing that to be a parking lot of some kind is all we're doing with this vote.
Yes,
Is that correct?
Yes, it's just a conditional use for a parking lot.
Thank
Yep.
you.
So right now, Jill.
Yes,
So
sir.
right now, they meet that standard.
You say it again?
They meet that standard.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Any more comments from our mayor, our council? If not, then we can get a vote to approve this conditional use.
I'm looking for
For parking.
language.
Nobody wants it.
I'm looking for language, Mr.
I'm,
Mayor.
Mayor, I'd like to approve the conditional use of parking lot for M18063 based on the application, public hearing, and discussion, and considering applicable standards with the following conditions. All of the standards, at least in this case, have been met. Yay.
It's P2, it's not M18.
What's-
M18 is the frontage lot. P2.
I'm going on what, it's
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
M18063A.
It is the frontage lot.
Okay, get a second?
Second.
Are there any more
Oh,
discussion?
no.
All in favor, show of hands.
Yeah. Yeah.
Opposes none, vote unanimously. This has been approved. Thank you so much.
Betsy, you said M18063A.
I did?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that,
Yes.
I think I may have left off A real, because
No, there
of,
was-
I did, because
Yeah,
it
there
flowed
was.
over to the next
I got you.
line,
Okay.
and yet it didn't seem to be
Yeah.
connected to the number. So thank you for that clarification.
Item number B, public hearing, M 18063 and M 18063B. Variance. That you, Joe?
Oh, sorry, that's me. I got another staff report.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, Joe.
That's okay. So the first variance, the applicant is requesting a variance to the building dimensions, more specifically building height maximum, building width maximum, and the building floor area maximum. They are, yeah, that's okay. Next slide, please. The applicant is requesting variances to section 700.2, table 12, commercial zoning district dimensional requirements to construct a building that would exceed dimensional maximums at the property. The variances include a building width maximum variance from 60 feet to 103 feet 4 inches, a building floor area maximum variance from 8,000 square feet to 12,941 square feet, and a building height maximum variance from 35 feet to 49 feet 10 inches. The applicant did say it was 42 feet 8 inches to the highest parapet. I would just like to say that the elevator shaft does go up to 49 feet 10 inches, and that's not exempt from building height standards. So that's technically the height of the building would be 49 feet 10 inches. The proposal is a 3-story building with commercial and residential land uses on the ground floor and residential uses on the top 2 floors. The Historic Preservation Commission discussed the project scale at the 2025 October HPC meeting and reported the application's general massing of the proposed structure is appropriate based on the historical reference to the massing of the former New Morgan Hotel, which occupied the site until 1930. Next slide, please. This is the Sanborn map. Just wanted to pull that up for reference. The property is zoned C1 and located in the downtown revitalization area, downtown core character area in the comprehensive plan. The desired vision and outcome listed for this character area is mixed uses within a single building, particularly second floor residential, compatible infill, full lot coverage, 0 lot line, 2-story maximum height, new businesses, uses, and activities attracting downtown-oriented foot traffic. Next slide, please. This just shows the top-down site plan as well as the rendering of the proposed building. At the Planning and Zoning Commission, they did recommend approval unanimously, and the motion approved 5-0 for this variance request. And that concludes the staff report.
Thank you so much, Jill. This time our public hearing is,
Can we ask a clarifying question first?
Yeah, you can.
Before we get started? I'm sorry, I just want to make sure did I hear you say that the first floor would include commercial in addition to residential?
Yes.
Okay.
As far as I know, the residential is going to be behind the commercial, so they won't front on the street.
Right.
But commercial would be fronting on the frontage of the
Got
building
you.
from both streets.
So right now, C1 only allows residential above commercial. Do I have that right?
Is that right?
It's permitted, do you want to answer that? Thank you.
Sorry.
That was the
I can
case
look if I have
prior
it.
to 4-ish years ago. That was changed when lofts on ground floor were introduced and now it is, it's on the ground floor to the rear, and is bound by the 51-49 ratio that's in the code.
Okay,
Yeah.
super. Thanks you for that clarification.
Any more questions for staff? If not, our public hearing is open for those who are for this variance. Ms. Ziegler, go ahead.
Thank you. Actually, that's an excellent place to begin. I want the council to please note that the hotel on this property, which was approximately 85 feet in height, was well taller than this particular building. And the top of the parapet at 42 feet 8 inches is what was requested by the HPC. We actually had it lower, and they said it needed to go higher to be of a better way to mass and to then architecturally segregate what was happening with the building, which I'm going to let the architects talk to you about because I'm going to sound very foolish momentarily about trying. But my point is that we are, from a historical standpoint, well below what was on this property before. And additionally, we are completely compliant or consistent with what is going on downtown in terms of the buildings that exist. As you all know, we have many buildings in downtown Madison which appear to be 3 stories, even though they might be 2, because of the way the parapets are designed and because there are attics on top and like that kind of thing. There are a number of actual buildings which are in excess of the 35-foot height limit. And it is a height limit. It's not a limit on the number of stories. It's a limit on the height. And that is, again, as per your code. So we have given you some examples of some of the surrounding properties that have buildings like this. One of them is the Welcome Center. The others are listed above. And the average of these buildings on the square itself is 43 feet 4 inches. So we are below the average of what already exists on the square in terms of what the height is that we're requesting. Now, the elevator, whatever you call it, cage or whatever it is that protrudes from the top, will not be visible because of the angle of where it will sit on the roof, and you cannot see it from street level. However, that's not a must-have either. If you want to eliminate that elevator shaft situation and keep it to the 42 feet so it's consistent with and below the average, then that would be an appropriate condition to recommend and something that we can certainly abide by. So I want to indicate our willingness to cooperate in that regard. I think that's about it in terms of the height issue. Except that, of course, there are other multiple examples of 3- and 4-story buildings in the core of downtown, such as the James Madison Inn, which is part hotel and part residential, the personal care home that I think Mr. Reams may own, or at least it's near his property, which is 3-4 split, 3 stories on one side and 4 on the other, and that is also 45 feet tall, so is James Madison, as you measure it to top of parapet. And there are a number of other buildings on the square which have retail above them, regardless of what their height might be. So this is hardly a unique situation that confers some kind of special privilege on us. It is simply something that we are requesting largely because we were asked to request it by the Preservation Commission itself. They held multiple workshops, hearings, public participation. We met with individuals who expressed concerns and made responsive changes to the plan as a consequence. And therefore, we are asking that you support this particular variance request.
So, Ms. Ziegler, can I ask you, the courthouse sits in the corner diagonal to this
Right.
particular building. How tall is that courthouse?
106 feet.
Okay, thanks.
And you can see that in the picture that they had up there. It towers even over what the hotel was. And the hotel had 5 stories. There were 3 that were basically rooms, and then the ground floor was a dining room and offices, and then on the top, there was a ballroom. So it was a 5-story building if you're talking about the historical aspects of the site.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else here to speak for this variance? Mr. Smith?
For those who don't know me, my name is Joe Smith. I've lived in Madison for 21 years. I'm an architect specializing in historic preservation, and my firm, Architectural Collaborative, designed this project. I also served on the Madison Historic Preservation Commission from 2006 to 2019. And during that time and in the years since, I've worked with many of the people in this room. Madison is where I built my practice, and it's a place that I care deeply about. Because of that background, I want to remind everyone that Madison has never been a static place. The city we admire today is a result of continual change. Over the past few decades, we've seen significant additions to the community. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. Projects like Jefferson Parkside, the James Madison Inn, Madison Town Park, and Silver Lakes. When they were new, they were debated. Today, they are simply part of the fabric of Madison. The proposed building at 300 Hancock is intended to continue that tradition. Throughout the design process, we work closely with the Historic Preservation Commission, attending multiple concept reviews and incorporating extensive feedback. The design reflects the materials, proportions, and rhythms of downtown Madison because it was created by people who live and work here. But I also want to talk about something bigger than architecture. Madison is a place that people want to be in. It's beautiful, historic, and vibrant, but it is also becoming increasingly difficult to afford. I recently saw a house listed on my street, a house that I designed a few years ago as a modest starter home. It's listed for $600,000. I was happy to see the value of our neighborhood recognized, but I was also struck by a realization that with the same job and the same salary that I have today, I would struggle to buy a house on my own street. For someone buying a $600,000 house today, even with a minimal down payment, the monthly cost is roughly $4,500 once taxes and insurance are included. Most lenders recommend that households spend no more than about 30% of their income on housing. That means a buyer would need a household income somewhere between $160,000 and $200,000 a year to comfortably afford that home. That level of income puts a household roughly in the top quarter of wage earners in the state of Georgia. But many of the people who help make communities function, the teachers, the police officers, and the young professionals starting their career, earn closer to $50,000 to $75,000 a year. Even two incomes at that level struggle to reach the threshold needed to purchase a typical house in Madison today. So we should ask ourselves a simple question. If single-family home ownership becomes unattainable for many people, what housing options does Madison provide instead? This project proposes 40 rental apartments in downtown Madison. Not luxury second homes, not short-term rentals, long-term housing within walking distance of the town square. We already know that demand for this kind of housing exists. Mixed-use buildings downtown that include residential units are consistently fully occupied. Providing well-designed rental housing in the downtown area is one way to help ensure that Madison remains accessible, not just to those who bought here decades ago or those who arrive with large equity from elsewhere, but also the teachers, public servants, and young professionals who help sustain a healthy community. Madison has always evolved, and thoughtful projects like this allow it to continue evolving while preserving the character that makes it special. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. My name is Paul Davis, and I live at 860 East Avenue with my wife Maggie. We moved here last July, and I would never think I would be standing in front of the mayor and the council. I'd like to take a few moments to talk about the local community and how the apartments are vital to our growth. Not only does it help our workforce, but it's going to provide tax revenue, which is something we all know we need. Talking first about some teachers, I talked to HR department. We have 266 teachers for 3,580 students. Starting salaries are only $47,000 for a new grad with a bachelor's degree, $52,600 for a master's degree. If you do the math, as the last gentleman was saying, you should spend no more than 30% of your salary on rent or for your mortgage. And if you do the math on these, the target price for these apartments will satisfy school teachers. When I spoke to the HR director, she admitted it was a problem, and that teachers do not live here, but they commute. Another group of people that makes up our community that I care about are healthcare workers. Now, it's difficult to do an analysis on all the workers because there's such a wide range. But just looking at nurses, which is the bulk of the people who work there, salaries are $52,000 to $62,000. And once again, the numbers work in favor of these apartments that they will be able to afford to move in there. Also, our medical center is currently offering a $10,000 bonuses for full-time positions in emergency, surgical, lab, imaging, therapy, and cardiopulmonary. Despite the fact that they're willing to get a $10,000 bonus, they're having difficulty filling those positions. And once again, if they did live here, they're not going to live in, they can't afford to live in the city. We need to do what we can for rural hospitals, because when we aren't unable to recruit, it is our neighbors, our parents, our friends who do not have access to the proper health care. One other point is, and I'll just make this brief, is, and I gave some handouts that talks about some of this, but when we have those apartments filled, it's going to create new revenue for our city. Property tax revenue, sales tax revenue, business and license permits, utility tax on water and gas, and all of that contributes to a multiplier effect. The research shows that a city like Madison has a multiplier effect of 1.5 to 2.0. The multiplier effect is how much the money turns over in the city. So if you spend $100, and then that person, that in business or that person then spends some of that money back in the city. So $100 turns to be $150 to $200 of new revenue for the city, all of which is being taxed. It's interesting, the data shows for a town such as this, with a square, with people living near the square, they can walk to all their, whether they're getting groceries or whether they're going to have something to eat. It's so convenient that the multiplier is closer to 2. So I think the 40 apartments aren't just housing, they're also a financial investment for the city. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. Ben Prue, I live at 421 North Main Street. And in fact, my wife and I and our kids frequently walk downtown just to go to the businesses that were here. I just want to say I'm also a professional land planner, and so I do a lot of work on redevelopment in historic cities. And I greatly appreciate the historic character of downtown Madison. It's what drove, my family to move here. I just want to say that, I think a lot of the concerns about this project are just, anxiety and fear about change. And I think to echo some of the comments before, the people that built the fabric of downtown Madison, they did not do that with the plan that what they built would never change for hundreds of years to come. And so I think we just need to recognize the flexibility and the rational thought that goes into realizing that our codes, our ordinances don't perfectly fit every scenario of what could be good for downtown Madison. Just in regards to the scale and the dimensional, requirements and the variance here, I took a look around other buildings downtown. It's a big deal today, but I think in the future, I don't know that anyone's going to go and recognize and say, oh, this is that much taller or shorter than, you know, the Madison Inn or some of the other businesses that were mentioned. So I just want to express my support for, you know, the intricacy and the balancing act that you all have to do, but I hope that we can recognize the opportunity for, you know, something good to happen in downtown Madison, and not get caught up in, you know, the details of imperfect code and ordinances that get constantly amended, and you all know this, on a monthly basis, because what was originally, you know, written doesn't always match the reality and the economic factors into what reasonably can get built and what could be best for our communities. So, thank you.
Hello, y'all. I am Ann Lambert Trulock, and I'm a lifelong resident of Madison, Georgia. I was born here, I grew up here, I came back here after work, and I am happy to be here again. This town is so unique, it is so wonderful, it is such a great place to live, and I just want to say that to offer this economic growth to our community would be an absolutely wonderful thing. The tax base would be increased by having this property here without increasing actual rooftops. It would be right there in the middle of town. There would be business support, vitality, and value for local businesses would just absolutely take off because of people who are living right in town. There would be adequate parking available for those people. The project meets the current parking requirements, and it would expand the job opportunities for people in our community. So I encourage you all to vote yes for this project.
Thanks for your comments. Anyone else here to speak for this various change? We have 12 seconds left. If not, if they want to speak against this various change, let's give somebody else an opportunity if they want to.
My name is Vic Peoples, and I reside at 596 Old Post Road, and I've been here for about 20 years now. It's interesting that we're having these discussions about variances, but yet when we talk about parking, we have a code that's 1.25, which I would think most people who have ever been in business, especially the restaurant business, would understand it's totally inadequate. I spent 40+ years in senior management and was a franchisee for KFC for 10 years. I built over 54 restaurants during that time period on various states and various cities, and I can tell you that the average seating capacity or parking capacity is 1.5 per seat plus one parking place for every employee on an average shift. That is not going to make here. The other question I would have for you is, if we were talking about 40 new houses being built in that area, how much parking would be for garages? It'd be a 2-car garage, basically. To think that one car is going to be for every household that's being rented in these apartments is a little bit ludicrous. The other thing is about the transportation or traffic issue. When do people go to work? They leave around 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. Those people are all going to be leaving at once. They don't just pace over a period of time. And when they come home, they're going to come home at the same period of time. So that adds all that traffic coming back. Now also, do these people have any friends? Do they have any people who visit them throughout the day or through the week? I would think that would be true. That means additional parking places. It's interesting to me that they want to talk about, oh, we're complying to the 1.25 parking places, but yet then again, they want you to make allowances to allow them to have more than what they have. Now, the other thing is that they're not replacing what is there currently, they're adding to. Now, this man is a businessman, and I don't begrudge him in trying to make a profit. But don't think that this process or project is only being built out of the goodness of his heart to add more housing to this area. There's going to be money made. This is an economic or a business decision to bring this to Madison. So, you know, I don't want everybody to say that, oh my goodness, you know, he's got to build back. Well, he can build back. He can build back exactly what was there without any problem whatsoever.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Celia Murray, 535 South Main Street. I note that repeatedly and through different advocates for this project, the applicant has pointed to a hotel that existed on this site for a very few years, only about 32 years, before it burned down almost 100 years ago. In that time, the City of Madison has adopted and readopted zoning ordinances with full awareness of the fact that there was a hotel of that scale and size there at one point in time. The City of Madison has adopted comprehensive plans and established a Federal Register Historic District, which includes downtown. All of these were carefully considered decisions designed to protect the square as it exists now and to prohibit this very type of overdevelopment. At some point, a variance overtakes the rule, and to allow a variance of this size and this magnitude, it puts this body in a very difficult position to ever say no to future variances like this. I also point out to you that your comprehensive plan, approved by all of you, calls for a 2-story maximum as well. 2 stories. Could be 35 feet, but 2 stories. The proposal in the C1 downtown revitalization area is for a 3-story project in an area that the comprehensive plan says should only be 2 stories. Now, I'll come back later when we get to the occupancy, the 51-49% split. But for now, I just want you to think about all of the zoning decisions that you have made up to now to protect the downtown area from this type of truly expansive development all in one place. And I agree with my neighbor Vic that Mr. Snyder can rebuild those businesses in exactly that space. He can make them better. He can put lofts above them. He can do a lot with that property without going to this type of massive scale. Thank you.
Linda Glover again. And pardon me for wanting to take you back to school.
You can put your mic down a bit.
Okay. There are only 3 things that we need to pay attention to. We can talk emotional arguments, we can talk jobs, we can talk employment, we can talk rentals. Down the street from me are 3 rentals that have sat there for more than 6 months. When I drove here, there was a vacancy sign in the townhomes, Jefferson Townhomes. When I went by the Concord, there was a vacancy. That's because nobody is discussing affordability. $1,200 will probably get you 400 square feet. I have been here 6 years. A lot of these folks that have spoken have only been here a couple. And I have worked for the Historical Society for 5, and I know my Georgians. You guys are rural. You like outdoor equipment, dogs, cats, lots of room. You like space. These apartments will not have balconies, they will not have patios, they will not have all kinds of stuff. But let's not go there. The basics are a variance is rare, believe it or not, because planning and zoning told me they vote on them all the time. The basis for a variance must be a physical land hardship. The land we are talking about is lot 22 of the original 48 lots laid out by the town fathers. It is, when you put it together, roughly half an acre, generally level, and the topography is regular, rectangular. There is no hardship associated with the land. The applicant and the planning staff have wasted everybody's time, money, and energy. This charade exists only because the planning and the developer have refused to let it go. As I said, the land matters. In 38 years of valuation, and I did my first land valuation in 1988, I have never heard of a premium corner lot with dual frontage described as a hardship. It is an asset. And that parcel, which has to prove to you that it has a hardship and that it is unique, is not. You can develop anything practically, I told you, up to 20,000 square feet with, like Celia suggested, what he had on the bottom, give his businesses some home, put some lofts up above it. Okay, so the land underlying the courthouse has the same wide frontage. The land under the Truist has the same wide frontage. The land under the Chop House has the same wide frontage. It also has a dual frontage. That is how they say they have a hardship. They say, it's too wide, it's too big, I have to put this massive thing. And nobody has said the word mass because we're looking at 44,000 square feet. And your courthouse is only 17,000 square feet. This project is 6 times the size of the post office. It is 2.5 times the size of the courthouse, and it sits right across from the oldest house in Madison. And Jefferson is a 40-foot wide street. 42 feet and then 49 feet will create a canyon effect on Jefferson, and those beautiful crepe myrtles will never see the sunshine again. So many people have said so many things about this that has nothing to do with real estate and has nothing to do with our ordinance. The ordinance says the hardship must be an extraordinary physical condition. It has to have a steep slope, it has to have a wetland, or it has to be irregular in shape. And it has to prevent reasonable use. So what is reasonable use? Reasonable use is a legally permitted use under section 620.3, table 7. And I submitted my proposal to you all, along with the hundreds of pages of stuff I have been giving you. An alternate 19,000 square foot courtyard development can be built on the 2 parcels, 100% viable without a single variance. To be abundantly clear, the fire is not a hardship. The rehoming is not a hardship. The brownfield is not a hardship. Those are not land hardships. Those are business and economic. Georgia law and the code that you adopted in September of 2025 explicitly bars you from considering any of that. We're talking land, physical, characteristic hardships only, and that parcel has been developed for 217 years. The standards of approval, and if Jill would put up the thing that shows the results of this request for height, okay, the height variance request failed 4 standards, 1, 2, 4, and 8. Our code, which they love so much when we look at 1.25 parking spaces, says to you in section 1130.6 that all standards of approval must be met. That means all 8. So if they fail 1, that means you cannot grant the request. Height failed 1, 2, 4, and 8. Width failed 8. Footprint failed 8. And if we had the thing I'm talking about, Jill would be showing this from her staff report of December 1st. Why you're even talking about it this evening is beyond me, because the code explicitly says all 8 standards must be met. Okay, most critically, every one of the requests for height, for width, and for footprint fail standard number 8. This lot is viable for a code-compliant project. And standard 8 says, is this the minimum relief? No, it's not. It doesn't need any relief. It needs 0. It's just because for what they have preferred design. The historic preservation aspects and the historic aspects of our town are to be admired. I wouldn't have been a docent for 5 years at Heritage Hall or Rogers House if I didn't care. However, your Historic Preservation Commission looks at the outside of the building only. not the inside and not the effect that it's going to have on the town. So, this nonsense has gone on way too long. Planning and the applicant know the proper path is a text amendment or a rezoning. It is not to variance it. Spot zoning via the variance process is not something you want to be doing. He is requesting 4 variances. He is going outside of our code. Let's honor the code. This is a quasi-judicial hearing and not a popularity contest. 1,000 hands in the air in favor of that massive project does not create a physical hardship of the land, no matter how much they want it to. So your basis, and look at your code and look at Article 11, and I want you to look at it because you did a clean text amendment in December. And in that clean text amendment, it says clearly, all 8 standards must be met. Thank you.
My name's Paul Roman, 292 Academy Street. First bought a home here in our current home, 1988. I'd just like to say a few things very quickly, and that is, first off, since the arrival of this company in town and the projects that they undertook, I have been, and my family, been very, very pleased with what they've done for the community up until now. And I have a lot of problems with this project and really regret that it seems to just attempt to max out what can possibly be built on this land, and at the same time relying on you to make variances, really severe variances, against your own codes in order to let this happen. As has been pointed out, there are alternatives that can be pursued, but I want to just say a couple of things. Number one, little has been said. This has been posed as worksite, workforce property, which I think is very misplaced given the very small size of these units, which very few of them will accommodate families, and the rental per square foot sounds to be extremely high, although details have not been provided. But most importantly, what I want to say to you is, as a city council, you need to consider what your city manager has been presenting us with, namely that there's a budget crisis now in this community, and what will this project cost the community in creating infrastructure in terms of the provision of sewerage in particular. I don't hear any engineering study having been completed of what you're going to have to do with this concentration of housing with all the appliances that will be in each of these apartments, and how this is going to work, and what we as taxpayers are all going to end up paying for.
13 seconds left. Anyone else here to speak against?
Can you say it in 13 seconds?
Okay. Hi, Mayor.
Hi.
And council. I am Barb McKeska. The proposed rebuild of 300 Hancock has been a real eye-opener for me, I think, since the beginning, or at least when I found it wasn't just going to be the rebuild of what he lost. I drive through downtown twice a day, every day on the way to and from the middle school.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, opposition's time's expired.
Oh, that was 13.
Second.
Aren't you sweet?
Sorry.
I know,
Let me,
sorry.
if I may say this, though, we did receive your letter that detailed your, no, we've got your letter, so even while you feel you didn't make a comment publicly, we all had the opportunity to read your comments.
Thank you so much. Back to our council now for a debate, a vote, comments.
Mayor, on that last comment of my colleague, Councilmember Wagenhauser, we've received a whole bunch of communications from a lot of you, really a lot. And there's a lot of stuff reported in the paper. So let me just say that I'm a fan of what Preston and his company have done for Madison. There's no doubt about it. I patronize, me and my family patronize his restaurants, the charming Cindy's wonderful little community roots. They're great businesses, and I really hope we're able to come up with a solution that allows him to rebuild. It's been a real asset for the community, and we appreciate the investment and all of that. And he's done wonderful things for Madison. If in a different forum, I could be at that podium kind of praising things that Thomas Preston Investments has done. However, I see my responsibility tonight to not judge the merits of the applicant, but to judge the merits of this application and whether it complies with the requirements of zoning, including the very wide, expansive part of zoning that comes under the variance protocols. That's, to me, is what we're looking at tonight. So I try and put behind me the wonderful things that he's done as an individual, and look what our zoning ordinance really requires. The second thing I wanted to say is I'm somewhat perplexed, very much like one of our earlier speakers said, at the model of a hotel justifying a lot of mass and 3 stories and everything that was built long before zoning had any kind of restrictions and has not existed in this community for almost a century. That model hasn't been here for 96 years, I believe, is my math. A much more apt comparison, I think, would be the existing buildings that are on our historic town square. And they are all 1 and 2 story, and whether we're talking of parapets exceeding the 35 feet height or not, they're 1 and 2 story buildings, all of them. Also, a point of comparison, and I ask you all when you leave tonight, look at our county courthouse, which is a big, imposing building, as it should be. It's the center of our community judicial life here in Madison and Morgan County. And it is essentially, when I look at that, I see a, granted big, 2-story brick structure with looks like a pretty tall parapet, a very large tower, and a cupola above it. But the bulk of it is in the 2-story context. I believe on the backside there might have 2.5 stories, but as you face the 2 facades on the corner, it's a 2-story building with a lot of ornamentation on top. So to put a big building next to it is going to really harm I think the importance of our historic character in Madison. Let me just say that a lot of people come to Madison. We are known throughout the state and throughout the Southeast as a destination, partly because of the wonderful antebellum houses that a lot of you spend a lot of money to maintain, but also, I'm convinced, equally because of our downtown commercial district, the wonderful stores that not only draws tourists, but we get to shop at, and a bunch of owners are here today, I see. And all those wonderful stores that we benefit from as residents are all in a historic context of small town, southern town, and that's what attracts people here. And I don't see the really large percentage variances that are proposed here fitting into that. I mean, we are looking at 62% on square feet and 70% on frontage and 40% on height. Those are massive changes, and perhaps a text amendment or something like that would be more appropriate, but that's not what we're looking at tonight. We're looking at these variances. The height one in particular, I am not interested personally in raising that at all. I do feel we owe Preston the ability to reward him for his investment in the community and perhaps build back something that maybe resembles what was there. And I know that's so maybe the frontage, 60 feet, I mean, a lot of the buildings on the square are really only 50 feet wide, the entire buildings. So this does reflect bigger, but perhaps we can talk about just allowing a building that has maybe frontage that was there before it was burned, maybe a slight addition of square footage in the back. I don't really know, but the height limit, I have no interest in. I think it would be harmful to the public good of Madison to go with a height limit increase at that location.
Another council member?
Yes, Mr.
Sure.
Mayor, if I may. This is my chance to make public comment. No, I'm kidding. First of all, honestly, I want to commend the planning and HPC staff for their careful attention and guidance throughout this process. I've read all of the material, including public comment, both for and against the project. In some cases, staff has been blamed for providing wrong information or obfuscating the truth when some folks just don't take time to read and fully understand the zoning ordinances, or those that choose to weave an ounce of fact into a pound of fantasy. I know better, and I thank you all for your excellent work. Now, the planning department does not, I'm just going to cover a couple of things, and then I want to make some comments about the standards. But first of all, the planning department does not grant variances. I have seen so many public comment talking about, well, they've granted this, they've granted that. They don't do that. The developer, the applicant can ask for any variance they want. And it's the planning department's job is to say, yeah, maybe that's not so great, but we will work with you for whatever you want, and that's exactly what they do. They do their job. You know, not even, so they don't have any legislative power. The commissions have no legislative power. They can only recommend. It is the council that grants or denies. And very quickly, a couple things I'm going to say. There's some comment about there's no mixed use language. Well, absolutely there is. You look at section 830 in our zoning code, and it directly addresses mixed use building in C1. All right, there's that. Now, if I can, real quick, I want to talk about, first of all, let's talk about the standards, because we're looking at these variances, and what we do when we sit down and we start looking at it, we want to see those standards. We want to see what they're meeting, what they're not, based on a staff's recommendation. Now, I appreciate that you all have been rather generous, I feel like, with the standards, but it seems to me either all have to be met, meaning every condition on each standard has to be met or not met. So what we were looking at when you gave it to us, there's an X saying it's not met and a check saying it was met for standard 1. But the point in saying, oh, these meet this, but height no. So all across the way is height no. Well, I mean, I think it's black and white. Either all the standards are met based on those 3 elements, which is height, mass and width, all of those, or not, or they each should have been a separate variance request. But if they're not, then we have to consider those as not, if you have a red X there, that's overall that standard is not met for that. That's you know, we can't kind of take pieces out of it. Either it's met or not met. Standard 1, basically, the idea about standard 1 is that, you know, we keep hearing about something being historically significant. The thing is, and as another comment was made, yes, it's so there, we've picked a building and it was there for 38 years, burned down, built again, whatever. But for the next 96 years, something much more modest, structure, not significant structure, was built with which we operated economically. We know that Mr. Snyder was able to operate his businesses apparently well enough to stay in business and do well with how that was zoned, how that was before it burned. I mean, I hate that it burned, I'm sorry for that, but I just don't see that, the most part, that seems to conform to current zoning for standard 1, apart from the height. So standard 2, I get the height, according to my colleague, we talked about the width on standard 2. I get it that it was already there, it was already that wide, it was 103 feet. And so in that case, I can see that, you know, I'm sure if we came to us at a different time, asking just to us to look at the width, I'm sure the council would consider that based on what was there for 96 years. But anyway, all of this, I feel like when we're looking at this, we're seeing that only 4 of the 8 standards have been met, unless you consider standard 5, which is checked. Special circumstances surrounding the request of the variance are not a result of acts by the applicant. However, given the fact that it's because so much of this is predicated on one design that's supposedly, I mean, I know that was historically significant, but even by HPC standards, you know, it was only 38 years. It wouldn't even be considered historically significant in terms of preserving it because it didn't live long enough. You know, I think it has to be 50. At any rate, so for that, I feel like we're just looking at just not the majority of standards have been met for even us to consider this. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a comment if I could, please. I want to echo what some folks have said, Thomas, about what you've brought to this community. Or Preston, I'm sorry. What you've brought to, what you've brought here. And my experience is that anything and everything that you've touched, you've done high quality. And there's no doubt about that. And I want to publicly and personally thank you for the things that you have done so far. And at the same time, I want to kind of echo my 2 councilmates here in that I kind of, when I approach something like this, I look at the standards that have been set and the significance of those standards. I think that when somebody looks at something and they make a law or they make a rule, it's somebody who has looked at it really carefully and made a decision about what they think is right. So when I think about us making exceptions to those things, it concerns me. When we make one exception, that's one thing. When we make 2 or 3 exceptions, that takes it to a totally different place. So thank you. I hope that we can have this as a further conversation, that this is not a live or die situation, a yes or no situation, but rather part of a conversation.
I have no comments.
I'd just like to make a couple of comments. And I'd just like to go back in time for just a moment. And I can't remember what happened when it was back some years ago. A truck stop wanted to come to Madison. Pilot truck stop wanted to come to Madison. And just as it is tonight, people in this city thought it would not work. Maids came to our council meeting. Citizens came to our council meeting. They said it wouldn't work. People was going to get killed going out to McDonald's to buy a Big Mac. But can I just say, pilot truck stop worked. It brought good business to Madison. And those who said no are still riding to McDonald's to buy a Big Mac. Sometimes changes are hard. And we are saying to Preston Snyder, we thank you. We appreciate what you have done. But if you really want to thank him, do the right thing. We all have our opinions. Do the right thing. We keep saying it's going to destroy Madison. People come to Madison to see more than just historic homes. They come to buy antiques. They come to buy sweets. They come to buy flowers. And they come to visit other shops in our city. We talk about affordable homes. I think the last apartments that was built in this city, there was still a waiting list of people who needed a roof over their heads 200 or 300 people. We have an opportunity to make it right tonight. 35, 40 units. We're talking about our educators have to commute into our city. Let's make it where they can stay in our city and work in our cities. Our city appoints a planning and zoning board to do the right thing. We appoint a HPC board to do the right thing. And I've heard comments about our staff are not doing the right thing. They have gone to school to do the right thing. So how many of you have gone to school to work in planning? And all I'm saying is, let's do the right thing. Our planning and zoning board, our HPC board have put a lot of time and efforts into this. And if we continue to deny what they bring before this council, why have a planning and zoning board? And why have an HPC board? All of us don't get what we want. I don't get what I want, but I would like to get what is right. And I think it's time we keep saying changes. If nothing changes, it dies. If nothing changes, it stands still. And I just don't understand for the sake of me. We keep saying when people ride down Hancock Street, that's going to be an eyesore to our city. When people ride down West, I guess it's West Washington Street, that's Town 220 there, 3-story, nobody never knows it's there. When they ride down Hancock Street, they're not going to know it's there. And trust me, people will come to the city of Madison just to have a meal in that particular place and to see what it looks like. And it will become a model for other cities to follow. Let's don't stop. We talk about our cities in financial situation. We have an opportunity to change that and to prove that. To make this, he told you tonight, he's putting $10 million into this project. $100 million we're going to receive over years to come. So if we as council members and mayor wants to improve our financial status in this city, it starts tonight. But if we don't want to improve the financial status in this city, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. Let's look at the real picture. Let's look at the real picture. We all have friends in this room. It's hard to go against friends sometimes, but I'd rather go against friends doing the right thing than to stay with my friends and do the wrong thing. Let's do what's right for Madison. No more comments? It's up for a vote.
I don't have a comment.
Question, question for our attorney. Because these three.
Is the 12 seconds still available?
No, it's gone.
It's closed.
If
Public hearing is closed.
we have these three variances kind of bundled into one vote. Personally, I think it probably should have been separated into three different votes, three different hearings. What if you like one variance, but you don't like the other two?
I think you have the ability to pull them apart internally and approve some and not approve some. I think the reason they're clustered the way they are is the applicant put them all together. But I think if you find they are different standards. So I think if you decide there's some of it height's problem and the rest of it's okay, then I think you can make a motion to approve it varying those that you choose to. You're quasi judicial and you're making a decision on what's been put in front of you, and so you don't have to decide it all the way the applicant asks. You can modify it and condition it.
All right, thank you. As you've kind of gathered from my comments, I'm speaking to my fellow council members now. I have no interest in raising the height variance. However, do you all see anything to the idea that the building that this applicant purchased had a frontage of about, kind of hard to tell, but I believe it was somewhere in the 90 feet. The current zoning would allow 60 feet. I mean, personally, I think...
The lot's 103,
The lot's 103,
103.4 inches, something like that, but it's about
I
103.
think the lot's 103,
Yeah.
and it's kind of hard to tell exactly on the frontage, but I believe it was closer to 90. I personally would, now that's a pretty substantial increase over the 60. That's like 50%.
But it is what existed.
Yeah.
So when we, even in other cases, when we've looked at variances, especially this is, I mean, I think this especially, the width certainly would warrant a variance based on what already existed and the capacity to rebuild. So I think if this, in any other circumstances this came up, I think we would be probably quite favorable for it. That's just my own opinion.
And how does that then relate to the square footage? Right now, and by the way, just, I know you probably all know this, but the only reason we're here tonight is because the applicant doesn't want to redevelop within the by right standards. I mean, people think that we on the council pick winners and choosers, or that we like this building, we don't like that one, we want this business, we don't want that one. We're here because the applicant has the right and has asked for exceptions to those dimensional rules. And so when I look at the building that was purchased, I believe it was about a 90-foot frontage. I could probably live with another something similar to that, which is a pretty substantial variance, like a 50% to the 60 foot that is in the C1. But I don't know what that really translates to in square footage then. Right now, 8,000 square feet is all that's allowed in the footprint. And everyone knows that the applicant can't build a second story above that at least 8,000 square foot footprint. So the building size could be doubled without any action by us. Did you look like you were on the verge of saying something?
I definitely was. Thank you so much. Mr. Mayor, may I?
Sure.
So my thought process is we've been discussing variances now for a while. We've been kind of going back and forth whether we should allow an applicant to meet all the standards or some of the standards, or what do we want them to meet? Did we ever settle on that? So for me, if a variance is in our ordinance, if we're not going to use what's already there, why is it there in the first place? I am not the person that wrote the variances, but they was there when I became a city council member. So we've given a variance for a pool on the side of a house. We've given so many variances, and we actually began to sit down and think about should a person meet all of them, and we never came up with anything.
That's right. That's right.
And I think all of that started because of the decisions that I've made in the past about it didn't say all standards. Does it say all standards now?
No.
It does not say all standards in the ordinance that I've seen. That language is not in the ordinance.
I didn't think so. My other question or comment is, I am looking for affordable houses. So if I had to add anything to this, Mr. Preston Snyder, it would be for some of the units to at least be, I won't say affordable, because affordable to me is one thing, and affordable to someone else is another thing. But could we at least get something there for some people to, I mean, $1,200 might not be a lot for you or anyone else in this room. But $1,200 for someone in my district might be their entire income for the month.
Right.
Not for the week. Parking is a big issue for me, and I haven't spoken, I've just been listening, because we've gotten so many emails, and I've had so many phone calls, and so many people approach me. but I want to speak for all citizens and not just part of the citizens. I know we always talk about the historical district. I love our historical district. But as a young girl, I was one of the people that started a petition at the age of 16 because my mama couldn't afford those windows. My mama couldn't afford to paint on the houses. So I started a petition in my little neighborhood to not be in the historical district. My house is only 1,800 square feet. To you, it's probably a little small for me and my two girls that I raised by myself. It was our mansion. So we need more affordable, or I should say workforce housing, because I wanted the people to live in it to work. I don't want us to have to take care of any more citizens. The ones that need it, okay. But we need houses. We need apartments. We need jobs. The last time I was on the housing team, the average median income was $65,000. It's no way with a $65,000 income that you can live anywhere in Madison. You see, I don't know about you guys, but at night when I'm at my house, because I talk so much all the time, so I decided I needed to listen tonight. I have people to come up to my house late at night that are living in their cars with their children, yet we say we don't have homeless in Madison. We do have homeless. And they want to know where they're going to stay, what they're going to do. They can't find a job. So if we approve this tonight, I would like to see workforce housing somewhere in that. And I would like jobs that can pay for the workforce housing. Those are my comments for tonight, and thank you all.
So, Mr. Snyder, how many employees do you plan to employ if this goes forward?
Mr. Mayor, we've got about, I think, 85 employees already. Between, in April of 19, we started with 0 and hired our first one in April of 19. I think the real estate company now has about 18 employees, and we have about 65 in Mad Hospitality working at the various outlets.
Mr. Stutter, if I may?
Yes.
I understand that your intention is to replace your businesses that were lost, your
Correct.
core business in
Yes,
that
ma'am.
space. So in this case, it seems to me that you would be continuing to employ the same employees. So this wouldn't necessarily be creating jobs. It would just be relocating your employees from where they've kind of been tucked away back into your space again.
We are trying to sustain the existing businesses.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I appreciate that clarification.
So, but Betsy, the ones that are building the building, if they build it.
That's correct. Yes, ma'am. The construction is going to be expansive. There would certainly be more people involved in the construction of the building, and that's beyond what we have within our existing teams, certainly. We're also looking to strengthen the company that's been significantly damaged. Moving businesses around into different locations, sales are lowered. This has been a struggle. We've tried to make it, we kept a facade up there, we've tried to make it still look approachable and appealing so people will come in. But when you walk around behind the wall, it looks like a war zone. That's the reality of it for us. But people just driving by might think, what's the problem? I can assure you there is one. It's a challenge.
Thank you, sir. So it's now back to this council for a vote. If there are no more comments on the variance M18063 and M18063B.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion that we approve M18063 and M18063B.
Without a lack of a second, that motion dies.
It does.
A motion to not approve?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'll propose a motion. I move we deny the request for a variance for the height increase, that we grant a variance for the frontage dimension at 90 feet, and the square footage of the footprint, a variance of 10% over what is allowed, 8,000 square feet up to 8,800 square feet, a 10% variance on square footage. Does that make any sense? I guess not.
So that motion died without a lack of a second. So, well, where are we?
We get to make another motion.
To get to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I would like to make a motion.
sure, go ahead.
Let's go get ice cream. No. The first, the language, your initial language, which is that we prove the variance, or we deny the height variance, but we approve, I would vote for approving the width variance with what was existing there, which is 104 feet.
No, that was the lot. That
Of the
was
lot
width.
size,
The
I
building-
see.
It's a little hard to tell, but that's, the building wasn't 103 feet.
I got you. Right, that's zero lot line.
The request was to go from 60 to 103 feet, 4 inches.
Oh, the request.
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be the zero lot line.
Right. Oh, I haven't finished it. Okay. So, I'm with you with that. So, we deny the height. We allow the width variance of 90 feet, but I would support a, what do you call it? You know, the square feet.
Square footage.
Square footage larger than your proposal. I would support a square footage of, let's say, 10,000 feet.
I'll second that motion.
Okay?
How does that affect?
Will you clarify the motion
Yeah.
one more
Okay.
time?
So I move that we deny the height variance, that we allow a variance request for more width to 90 feet, and we
The building width.
The building
The
width
building width.
to 90 feet, and the allowed square footage from the required 8,000 feet to 10,000 feet.
The ground floor.
Ground floor,
Thank
sorry,
you.
yeah, I need help, clearly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That was your motion, and we got a second from Councilmember Joyce. All in favor? Any more discussion?
I would like to ask a question. How does that affect what you're doing?
Yeah. Yes.
It renders it highly unlikely. I'm not an architect. I can't fit it in the box you just defined, so I can't say for certain. But again, the by right alternatives are less unattractive than that. We could build 50% more square footage by right than what we proposed, but that's not what we felt like was appropriate for the site. There's differences of opinion on what the right thing for the site is. We proposed a little over 40,000 square feet. By right, you could put 60,000 square feet plus with a lot less parking. It's not where we wanted to go. It's not what we think is right.
Did you say Preston, the motion is less than what C1 now allows by right?
Yes, that's correct.
Why, I don't understand that.
We could build significantly more.
Well, 8,000 square feet is the square footage.
He can subdivide his lot and
Well, that's-
build it out zero
yeah,
lot
that's-
line.
right,
And maximize
that's-
it, yeah.
But we're talking about the dimensions for the one.
So I'm sorry. On an 8,000 square foot lot downtown, anybody could build 16 to 24,000 square feet, depending on what they can fit into 35 feet, on an 8,000 square foot lot. We have 43,000 square feet.
Wow.
You're always going to be Thomas to me, you know that now.
It's fun. I've answered to worse.
I
yeah,
would love to
especially
see
lately.
the
Yeah.
picture that you put up that was the rendering, because that picture took me to a different place. And
Okay.
I don't know whether.
Is that possible?
We have
I-
a vote, and we're
I-
at
I-
a vote.
Yeah.
We're done.
I-
I mean, there's not, sorry, but
It's not that one. It's the one that has the space between the courthouse and the building.
You want the ghost image for the?
No. No. There was one that was a rendering that showed this.
It's coming.
Okay.
She gave the ghost image. Unless she's the ghost image at the hotel.
There it is.
That's the old hotel.
Okay.
We've got one where that's the hotel in context, and then we have one where that's overlaid over the proposed project, so you can see it in scale.
And what you're saying is
There it is.
there it is. That space between there looks like a boulevard. It doesn't look like a
That's
lane.
actual conditions.
well, it's a wide angle lens, that's why it looks wide.
Is that, it's
Yeah, it's wide
extending it?
angle.
Okay. Sorry.
I
I was just.
In order to get everything in, but.
Yeah.
You sure? You really sure? Betsy? Yeah? Yeah?
You sure?
Yeah?
No, Betsy, you're not
Okay.
sure.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Let me just clarify, though, that all lots, well, in C1 are allowed to have 8,000 square foot building. This grants a variance of 25% up to 10,000 square feet on the footprint. This grants a variance of a 50% variance on the frontage from 60 feet to 90 feet. And then no variance change from the 35-foot height limit. Is that correct?
Correct, but it would not preclude the property owner from subdividing the lot
Subdividing,
and
correct.
building zero
Yes.
lot line, yes. Mhm.
What do we do with the balance, the rest of the frontage? So it's 104 or something, I think you said. And it's 90, what do you do with that 13 feet?
Well, I'm not sure I should be responding, but with the expertise that Preston has amassed in architecture, I'm sure you can find a very nice opportunity to build a sitting area, something of that sort. I know one of the arguments was the missing tooth concept.
Yes.
There's a missing tooth on the driveway for the Truist Bank. The driveway and the ATM lanes, those are missing teeth right there, so I'm not sure that argument holds water. I mean, right next to your property is, to my mind, a missing.
Is that what you want it to look like? Is that what we want our architecture to look like?
No, but I'm saying you could easily design, well, I shouldn't be back and forth. We have a motion, and I think we have a second.
Sure. All in favor, show of hands. One.
I want to hear the motion again, please. What was the?
You want
I don't know,
to,
but
Jill,
I'm
you want to give it back to us?
I heard it was for a denial of the height variance request and an approval of the building width at 90 feet and the building width and the ground floor square footage 10,000 square feet.
he can't. What is he gonna be?
You understand?
I don't know if that's going to help.
It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. That is, I don't see that working. No.
So all in favor, show of hands. 1, 2, okay. 2 in favor of not granting this variance. Okay. And I think before there was 2 in favor. We didn't vote before. So we're gonna go back to the drawing board, Mr. Attorney, and have another motion.
So did you take the opposed vote?
All in favor? 2?
Is it?
No,
You
no.
have to take the opposed vote too, though, Mayor.
No, my vote died, and you guys just voted and changed the width and the height and everything. Only 2 people agreed with that. So do we make another motion?
Well, we,
It really is right to go back and take the negative vote
Thank you.
on the motion that was just made. They show of hands to the affirmative, but there was not a show of hands to the negative.
Denial.
And those
Right,
who
exactly.
denied.
Who denied the motion?
yes,
That
you
was-
deny?
I denied the motion.
Okay.
All right,
So, Mr. Mayor, you got to vote
you
tonight.
can break the, it's your vote.
It's your vote, Mr. Mayor.
Well, I vote that we recommend the variance.
That we what?
That was not the,
That's not-
that was not the motion
Not
on
on
the
the
table,
floor.
Mr. Mayor.
You have to vote on this motion, Mayor, to break the tie.
Vote, you either vote for or against this motion.
I am, no, we don't want to table it. No. I'm against this motion.
Okay.
I move that we table it.
If this is tabled, what is it going to take us to, Tony?
It'll take you to the next meeting, is
I
what
was
it would
gonna-
do.
So if we table it, we have a date. We can set a date tonight as to when we're going to actually vote on it again?
Yes, ma'am.
Next council meeting.
And you can do that. Most of the times, that's done without a public hearing, that the action item just gets tabled to the next meeting since the public hearings have been concluded.
So we want to table to the next, we get a motion to table to the next meeting.
Second.
All in favor, show of hands? 2. Opposes, show of hands?
You can do abstain.
How did y'all vote? Wasn't paying attention.
I voted to
To
table.
table?
it.
Yeah.
I voted to table it to the next meeting.
I'll go along with my colleagues and reluctantly vote to table.
Make it unanimous.
So, make it unanimous. Are you going to vote to table it?
Yes.
Okay. So let's do the vote again. All in favor, show of hands of tabling it.
Only this part of it,
Only-
not the conditional
Right,
use.
right,
comment.
Okay.
right, yeah, okay. So we will table this until the next meeting in April.
And we do have one more.
Still have
It's-
We
the-
still have one more, yeah.
And so I assume, shall we table both variance requests as one is predicated on the other?
We might need to still have a public hearing. Does that sound?
You would. If you table the third action item now, there's a public hearing requirement.
For the next meeting.
Okay.
So, Jill, are you ready for
Yep,
the third one?
I am ready.
Okay.
Okay. The second variance request is for non-residential occupancy minimum to section 700.2, table 12, note 11. The applicant is requesting a variance to section 700.2, table 12, note 11, to operate a mixed-use building that would not meet the non-residential occupancy minimum of 51% of the gross square footage of the building at the property. Next slide, please. Note 11 reads, in the downtown commercial district, C1, residential use of a building is permitted provided that a principal use of the building is non-residential, evidenced by a non-residential occupancy of a minimum of 51% of the gross square footage of the building. So in other words, this mixed-use building would be permitted by right if the non-residential occupancy did not fall below the 51%, or another way to think about it if the residential occupancy exceeded or did not exceed 49%. The proposed building is would be approximately 75% residential and 25% non-residential within the building. There was some public comment that was spreading about this item that I just want to touch on. The public comment stated that this request was not a variance from dimensional requirements, but this request is a question of density, which is considered a dimensional standard in section 700.1, table 11. I should also note that note 11 is within the dimensional requirements table for table 12, excuse me. Next slide, please. There were some other public comments said that the parking lot was not adequate, and I know we already discussed this previously, but for the zone, as the zoning ordinance says, the C1 does not require parking to be supplied by the property owner for retail, restaurants, or professional uses, just residential. So the 52 spaces would be adequate for the units that they have proposed. There was another expressed concern that the full demolition of the existing property would result in the property losing its non-conforming status. While that is true for uses and structures, it does not apply to the subdivision of the parcels. And that can be found in section 500.3, non-conforming lots of records. And the final one I just want to talk about is it was said that apartment buildings is not listed as a land use for C1 properties, and that is correct. But again, this is a mixed-use building with accessory apartments as land use permitted by right in this zoning district. The Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval, and that motion passed 5-1 with one commission member dissenting. And thus, this concludes the staff report for this item.
That it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Our public hearing is now open. Anyone here who wants to speak for the variance of M18063 and M18063B, 700 Furnace Street. Ziegler, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I want to begin with making some observations that are legal in nature with regard to, for example, satisfaction of the standards and what should or could not be considered when you're looking at a variance. And I think it's really important to put this in context. Unfortunately, it may be too late for the last one, but at least it won't be for this one. So let me begin by saying that the planning, the argument that you have to satisfy all of these standards, it is not, as was pointed out, the way the code reads. Additionally, and more importantly, however, there is language in the statutes about variances and conditional use permits and anything else that you have a quasi-judicial right to consider that says specifically, and it's true at the beginning of the variance section, at the beginning of the conditional use permit section, you are to consider these factors. Not that they have to be satisfied, that you are to consider them. And I think that's an important distinction to make because it is very rare, and I suspect the staff would confirm this, for every single standard in a variance to be satisfied, ever. That's my first point. The second point that I would make is that I disagree with with the conclusions in reference to what is and is not hardship. We have a lead problem that we didn't create, but nonetheless, we've got to deal with it, and it is difficult to do so. We have an overly large lot, which we did not create. And as a consequence, trying to find something that fits it becomes more and more difficult. Because of that overly large lot, we will be underutilizing the space in terms of the way the square looks and everything else, unless we can get an increase in terms of the square footage. That's not something we're imposing, that's something that gets imposed by the code. So there are hardship elements here that are not being considered properly, and I think that you have to take those into consideration when you are making your evaluation of this request and probably the former one, but that be that as it may. But the other thing I want to point out, and this is really important, your code reads as follows, and this is a direct quote: "You should consider granting variances where by reason of exceptional narrowness, shallowness, or shape of a specific piece of property, or by where reason of exceptional topographic conditions, or other extraordinary or exceptional conditions of a piece of property. The strict application of the development requirements of this chapter would result in practical difficulties to or under hardship imposed upon the owner of the property." It is not as limiting as you have been told that it is. It is considerably more broad than you have been told it is. And the Supreme Court of Georgia told us in 1991 that when you are considering variances, one of the things that you may consider is the public benefit from the variance. There is a case out of the Georgia Supreme Court called Emory University versus Levitas, and it is a case in which Emory University wanted to build its conference center. It was on Houston Mill Road, if some of you are familiar with the Emory campus in Atlanta, and it was like a 19-acre piece. A lot of the acreage was in a virgin forest, so first growth forest, very difficult to replicate anymore, very difficult to find anymore. And Emory came in with a height request for a 18-story building. And the argument that they made was that, first of all, they needed the building for their own internal uses. Well, that's self-imposed. And second, that it was worth saving the forest that was on the property by going taller than wider. There was a benefit to that. There was a demonstrable benefit for that in terms of helping the environment and generally trying to preserve what is out there. And I submit to you that we have the same circumstance here. The benefit here is to provide the variety of the housing type. And your comprehensive plan specifically cites that as a goal. Your comprehensive plan provides compelling reasons for approval of this because of the benefits. For example, one of its findings is in reference to the needs of the city is that it expressly identifies a lack of affordable and workforce housing. That's not a surprise. That's an existing fact and something that is a problem, and that's in the comp plan on page 21. It also expressly notes immediately thereafter that this statement embraces a need for rental housing. Not everybody can afford to buy a house. We need to have rental housing as a variety, as an option, and that is a benefit to the community because it does serve our working citizens. It also expressly notes that the need for rental housing it is because effectively what Madison has right now is single-family housing. Whether it's 1,800 square foot or whether it's a historic mansion in the historic district, we are not a city, you are not a city here, where you have those rental opportunities available in an abundance. The actual waiting list, as I understand it, on affordable housing is 1,500, not 300, as of the most recent numbers. This price point does serve the workforce housing. I know the 1,200 may seem high to me because I didn't pay it when I was in school, but in actuality, when you're looking at 80% of your average median income, that is an affordable unit. So this does provide that opportunity and one that does not exist now. The quality community objectives in your comprehensive plan state, and I quote, "We need to have an adequate range of safe, affordable, inclusive, and resource-efficient housing." Resource efficient, live, work, play. That's exactly what we're talking about here. And again, in a variety of housing sizes, costs, and densities in each neighborhood. We don't have this kind of opportunity in the true downtown core right now. We do have a lot of units where there are residential units, or a lot of buildings, residential units above retail. But you know what? every single one of those buildings, and there are about 10 of them, and I'm sure you're familiar with them, I can give them to you if you're not, but every single one of them has the same amount of space on the second floor as it does on the first floor. So those are not observing this 49% rule, and I know that the rule came into effect after many of those units were developed, but if you're going to enforce it, then you're creating them as non-conforming structures. And if you do that, you're going to eliminate those opportunities should they stay vacant for an extended period of time. So from a policy ramification standpoint, I think that also justifies protecting what we have in the downtown core and then moving on. The rent ranges in this development are affordable and represents the ability to house persons who need affordable housing up to 80% AMI of the city. For all of those reasons, and yet that's not the standard line of cases, it's never been overruled, however, in which the Supreme Court decided that saving the forest to the benefit of the community was worth the variance that was being requested. But it applies here. Providing a working force housing opportunity is a benefit. Providing a productive use on this site in a live, work, play environment is a benefit. We've got these things scattered throughout town in smaller formats. We've got Restaurant 220, dwelling units above. Got James Madison, dwelling units above. That's not over 49.9% though, I do give you that. But there are a number of others that are located throughout the city, which in fact are equal. Ground floor, second floor. Ground floor is retail, second floor is residential. So the precedent exists for the benefit of the community, because living downtown is great from those I've spoken to, that perhaps needs protecting here. And that's all I'm suggesting in terms of another reason why this variance and the other ones, unfortunately I didn't get the ability to speak on them, should have been approved. And I would just ask you to go ahead and accept the recommendation of your bodies, your Planning Commission and your Historic Preservation Commission, and go ahead and approve this particular variance.
This is the first time I've been to one of your meetings. And I'm just shocked, right? I'm shocked at the recommendations based upon absolutely nothing as a compromise here. I think that the best thing that's happened here tonight is you've tabled the second.
Could you state your name?
I'm Marty Fearman, and I live on 2000 Dixie Highway, and my office is up here next to the United Bank, right? I think that's the best thing that's happened here tonight, is you've tabled the second proposal to give yourselves a chance to reflect on what's happening here. This business of chopping this project into pieces will kill it, all right? And so you guys here are wrestling with how you're going to balance the attitudes of the community, when what you need to be thinking about is what kind of community do you want to develop here, all right? And how does this fit into it? The suggestion, that the code has the same status as the 10 Commandments brought down by Moses, all right, ignores the fact that the purpose of the variances, all right, is to accommodate things that were not anticipated at the time the code was written. It's like the Constitution of the United States. They couldn't get out the door before they did 10 amendments to the Constitution, all right? They provided in the Constitution for the amendments because they knew this isn't over, this isn't complete, this is not necessarily the best there is. I was here 2 hours before I heard you guys get to what this ought to be about, and it came out of the mouth of the mayor. What kind of community are we wanting to develop here, and how are we going to preserve a community here that we're going to like and admire? And if we don't rejuvenate this community, if we don't make it possible for young people to come here and live here and put down their roots here, right? If we force young people to take jobs here and drive back and forth to someplace else, it's someplace else they'll be developing their community, their connection with the community. Stop and think about how this community wants to develop and how we're going to serve our young people who are already here when they come back from school or finish high school or whatever, right? And people who want to come here to be police officers, deputy sheriffs, school teachers, all right? And we have to think in terms of, what are the incomes on average here, all right?
That's right. That's right.
I think the smartest thing you can do, all right, the second smartest thing you can do this evening is table this one too. And come back here in a month or whenever that is, all right, with deliberation, thinking about what the priorities are for this community as you envision them, all right? You got it. Jump.
Anybody want to stand up and move for a second? I'm Margaret Ligon, and I'm a former Main Street director here for the city of Madison. I'm a business owner in downtown. I'm a lifelong member, resident of the historic district. Not been in the same house, but I've been in the historic district. But tonight, I am representing a number of active downtown retailers, professionals, and business owners who support this project. This proposal has already been carefully reviewed and recommended by both the Historic Preservation Commission and the Planning and Zoning Commission. 2 councils that y'all appointed and 2 councils that have spent a lot of time on this. It makes me wonder, why are we talking about having a budget council if we aren't going to take into consideration what these councils are asking of you and the recommendations they're making? Throw that idea out the side if you're not going to listen to what those committees are saying. From the downtown business perspective, we believe the requested variances are reasonable and respect the intent of our downtown development guidelines, particularly the importance of maintaining active, business-oriented ground space that contributes to the visual integrity and the vitality of downtown. We have seen how thoughtful development can strengthen our downtown while preserving its character. James Madison Inn, Avada Building, which is now assisted living, the Chop House Building. Projects like this have brought meaningful economic benefits, like supporting small business, creating jobs, expanding our tax base, and helping support the long-term financial health of our city. We all have seen the benefits of the things that Preston has done in this town, and his track record for quality projects are also an important factor here. We all desire to preserve and protect our town's character, but this project balances a respect to the past with a responsibility to the future, and we ask you to support it.
I'm Brad Rice. I reside at 537 Foster Street. I want to emphasize I'm speaking here as an individual, not as chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. The mayor mentioned that it is difficult to disagree with your friends, and Betsy and Eric are 2 of my very dearest friends. But I do want to point out, by making the motions for the 60-foot adjustment and the 10% addition, the motions that were tabled, you have in essence admitted that the all 8 requirement does not stand. You have, yours would have violated the all 8 rule just as much as any others. Also, I would stress that our debate here is between what can be done by right and what is the proposal, not between the proposal and what people wish the proposal would be. By right, all we heard from Mr. Reams and everyone about parking would still apply. And by saying that, as Eric did, that the hotel's 96 years old, that is true. But by right, people could build something that was never, ever on the Hancock side of the square, and that is 60-foot wide, 2-story buildings. So at least by referencing the old hotel, we're speaking about something that historically did stand there.
Time's up. Time's up.
I believe our time is up on that. Okay.
Just what you see other people wanted to talk.
Yeah. Well, anyone here to speak to oppose this variance?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, again. Celia Murray, 535 South Main Street. Your ordinance says it specifically prohibits apartment buildings in the downtown core commercial district. Big X in the table. It does allow mixed-use buildings, but at some point, the principal use of the building overtakes the definition that the applicant is trying to pigeonhole with mixed use. If we're talking 3 businesses on the ground floor, but they don't even take up the entire ground floor, and we're talking 3 stories, then you've got at least 2 stories, and going back to the point that someone else made, the second floor is the same size as the first floor, then you're really talking about 66% of it being apartments on the top 2 floors and half of the ground floor. Now you're talking, you know, in the neighborhood of 85%, 84% being apartments. I don't know how, does it have to be 100% apartments for it to be considered an apartment building, which is specifically excluded by your zoning ordinance? At some point, when you change the principal use of the building, you're creating a use variance, which is not allowed under our ordinance or the Constitution. That 51% commercial maximum is the issue that you really need to be looking at here. And how did that 51% commercial designation come about? Looking at the transcript of a hearing before this body on July 13th, 2020, I quote someone who spoke before you as an applicant, who said that you can have commercial uses or professional uses even in the basements of buildings, but it's all about preserving the ratio of residential to non-residential, so that the non-resident, non-residential use is always the primary use in the building, which is, and I quote, critically important in that C1 downtown district. The person who said that, Mr. Joe Smith, just 5 years ago, when the proposal of lofts on the ground, lofts and apartments on the ground floor was before you, and you approved that on the condition that the buildings remain 51% or better commercial. That was just 5 years ago. And now, because Mr. Smith is in a position where he's been employed to advocate for something different, he's going to. Mr. Snyder's project could be done on 2 floors with some tweaks and still be commercially viable and still provide some housing. I don't know whether it's particularly affordable, because as someone else said earlier, we don't know what the cost per square foot is, which is generally a measure of the value of housing. We don't know what those numbers are. But he could build his businesses back and put apartments above and still be in what has, with a tiny, tiny little tweak, maintain that 51% commercial aspect to it. You can do that with outside, covered outside dining space that would be, I think, considered part of the commercial aspect of the building. But if we approve this variance, if you approve this variance, then you might as well throw out that whole 51% rule, because you're going to be hard pressed to ever deny any other project in the downtown C1 district that wants to put in 80% or 75% apartments. You're not going to, you've set a precedent there that is contrary to what your zoning ordinance is. So I urge you to deny the last variance request on that basis, that it simply is contrary, directly contrary to your zoning ordinance. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm just going to say just one little piece here that I wanted to mention. Why I can't say. I want it to be very clear that it's not an argument against affordable housing. I know Madison absolutely needs thoughtful housing solutions I've mentioned before. The question many ask are simply whether the town square is just the right location for the project of this scale. I heard many compelling reasons, of course, for expanding the affordable housing in Madison, but I didn't think many were making sense to me for explaining why so many apartments should be placed directly on the square itself. Now, talking a little bit earlier about what's affordable to one is not necessarily affordable to another. And I think I heard tonight 40 units, and I'm not sure, I haven't heard again, but I previously heard like lofts, 1 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms. Now, if the lower end would be the $1,200 a month range for a loft, I don't know. What does that actually mean? What's a 1 bedroom? Of course, probably the 2 bedrooms are closer to the $2,000 range, I guess. But how many people wanting that affordable housing are coming as a single person? I mean, whether you have a child alone or 2 or 3, or you have a husband and a couple of kids. I mean, I don't know. It just seems like when you're talking loft, 1 and 2 bedroom, $1,200, $2,400, are we just talking single people or just 2 people? When most people here have families, and how would that actually fit in that situation as the housing? And the only other thing, really, I don't need to mention any more of this, but going back to that century old hotel, even before that, I mean, I think the original Planters Hotel was only a 2-story. I mean, there have been so many different things besides just a 3-story hotel.
I would like to answer Ms. Reed's question about when you folks are supposed to consider all 8. It's called the conjunctive list when the word "and" appears in the list. If you look at our code, which I'm looking at right now, required findings for variance approval, we have 7, and then we have a word "and." If they had meant that you did not need to meet all 8, they would have used the word "or." And if you had studied real estate, as I have, you would know that variances are rare, which I have said again. We are not looking at the staff report from February 15th, which was updated on February 25th, and it says that this request failed 5 of the 8 standards, including it being a privilege, to the applicant that would not be granted to other people, and also it's not minimum relief. Now, people keep telling me that this is not a use variances, but it is. There's no such thing as a density variance when you're in a commercial building. You're looking at a building that has a tipping point. The 51% is a threshold. It is not something that you can variance away. You are doing, it's called a land use category, and it is called a land use mandate that mandates the commercial property to stay commercial in the C1 district. If you go over the 49% threshold level of the residential, you are creating a different land use. You do not, I will argue that until the cows come home. You are creating a multi-family property, which does not appear on the C1 permitted use table. Table 620.3, I should say section 620.3, table 7. Okay? There is so much wrong, we have to dial back to the land. The only reason to grant a variance is a hardship with the land. There is no hardship. I disagree with the attorney. I am not an attorney, but I spent 15 years in litigation trenches arguing points. I spent 10 of those 15 years in toxic tort environmental litigation. The brownfield is not a land hardship. It is an economic hardship called an externality, a negative externality. The insurance cost, rising costs, they have nothing to do with us. My heart goes out, yes, but factually, no hardship on the land. This is a change of use, which makes it a prohibited use per section 1130.1. And I also present to Ms. Reed the clean text amendment. And this clean text amendment will say to anybody, should you adopt it, you addressed it in December, but you put it aside, and it'll say 1130.8, standards for approval. The following standards should be used by zoning and planning officers or their designee. Planning Commission and Council in reviewing, recommending, and acting upon applications as appropriate to balance the interest of public health, safety, and general welfare. All of the following standards must be met for approval to be considered. Thank you for your time.
Just a point of clarification, that has not been adopted.
I was gonna say it's written, but it hasn't been adopted yet.
I didn't say it had been adopted, I said you could discuss it. Right.
I'm not even speaking with you right now, I'm speaking with Molly.
That's
And
correct. It
thank
has
you.
not been adopted.
Anyone else here wants to speak? I guess this variance.
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Bell. I live at 555 South Main Street. Everybody's covered a lot of details tonight, so I just have a couple of summary comments. One of them is that we don't know if these massive variance requests, which would damage the principal use of the building, would constitute a use variance. Use variances are strictly prohibited under our zoning ordinance. It does seem to exceed the 51% commercial maximum so much that really, whether it's a use variance, a prohibited use variance, should be considered. Because you don't want to do something in violation of the ordinance or, God forbid, the Constitution. That aside, we do believe that this is an exception would eat the rule if it's granted, and that you'd be hard pressed to hold the line for 51% for future applicants. For a principal commercial use for him or for anyone else, it should be, this type of change should be the subject of a discussion about the zoning ordinance for downtown, for the downtown core commercial district, and a reevaluation, if necessary, of the downtown's future, rather than variance decisions based on a single property. There is some law out there, but this is just my opinion of what it looks like. There are 2 lawyers in this room getting paid, so there's a case out there that looks awfully familiar about whether this would be a use variance. In the staff report, it says that the proposed uses are okay in this area, and they are okay, but there is law out there that when, as I read it, is my understanding, my opinion, that when one use that is not the principal use so grows and expands as to override what was the principal use, that can be considered a use variance. And I would just hate to see our city go down that road and do something illegal or unconstitutional. So It's worthy of thinking about that. Also, affordable housing. There's nothing here that is going to require affordability for these housing units. You know the hoops you have to jump through with federal affordable housing projects. There's nothing here that's going to protect costs from escalating. It's a, for-profit residential building. And of course, everybody has incredible respect for the work that P&Z do and that the HPC does. Incredible amounts of time those people spend studying these issues. But these issues came before them without any reference to the 51% rule. Nobody knew about it. Nobody discussed it. These buildings came up in front of them. They didn't know that that was a requirement. They didn't know that that was a limit on these zoning requests. So really, they had hearings that truly put the cart before the horse. They didn't know about these limitations. They weren't told about these limitations that clearly people knew about. And so they went ahead, as they were entitled to do, without reference to this very fundamental condition. So with all due respect,
Mr. Mayor, our time
not
has expired.
applicable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This public hearing is closed. It's back to our council for debate.
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Sure.
I want to address some of the comments as we consider this. First, if I may, it'll take 2 seconds. I want to read the definition of our downtown commercial district, which is to recognize and protect the historic and current vital core of the city, to foster its continued existence as commercial center for business, government, and service enterprises for the whole community, to encourage development of the district as a shopping and dining activity center for residents, tourists, and the surrounding region, and to reinforce its small-town architecture, character, and feel, its pedestrian atmosphere, scale, movement by grouping specialized uses which benefit from close proximity to each other, and fostering full utilization of existing structures and infrastructure by allowing mixed land uses, contiguous construction, and shared parking facility. The downtown, in my mind, the downtown downtown commercial district was not created to address housing. If we get I get it that we could have some of that, but if I may, Molly, just as an aside, could you clarify for me what accommodations are made in the comp plan to provide for housing? I mean, I think, anyway, could you kind of lightly, without going into too much detail, obviously, just to...
We have a number of residential districts. There's the traditional neighborhood. There are some of the more modern neighborhoods. They're all provided for primarily residential purposes. I would say that that's a 10-year-old document. We are now embarking upon a new comprehensive plan, and it will consider the changing market and the changing world that we live in at the moment.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So, in my mind, and I've been taught by planning folks that the nature of variances are rare. They are rare. They're not meant to be just sort of an everyday commodity. To be fair, Mr. Snyder, I want to see something beautiful there. I absolutely do, and I'm sorry that it looks like I'm sorry that I'm opposing this, but there's more to it for me. But by your own admission, you said that you could go ahead, you could go do full code. You could develop everything, that lot, by subdividing it and for full code, build even something bigger and greater, which to my mind nulls the argument for any hardship. If you've already admitted that you can already conform to code and build, then I don't know why there's a hardship that we even have to think about.
May I respond?
I'm just gonna make my points, if I may, because it's back to council now. The height, according to Kathy, the height was an element that in the standards, which caused them to fail. When we eliminated the height, those standards became agreeable again. So you're talking about how we just kind of threw the standards out as if we allowed them, even though, you know, they were the variances didn't meet the standards, but by removing height, that it made them more agreeable. The last thing I want to say is this. We love our HPC commission, we love our planning and zoning commission, and oftentimes we will take their recommendations, we'll look at them and we'll go forward with those. But let me remind you, some time ago, they came before us an annexation of some property that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended that we approve. We denied it. That property was the P&K development that we now see in Social Circle for the detention center. And if we'd gone straight up and just gone with Planning and Zoning had recommended for us, we would be sitting with most likely a very lovely 10,000 whatever square feet detention center or whatever. But I'm just saying, the point is, we do want these commissions to operate. We respect them, we work with them, but sometimes we have a bigger picture, the more complete picture of what is going on than their recommendation. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Sure.
What you just read a few minutes ago, Betsy, it was written when for the downtown district?
It's in our zoning. It's,
I know, but I'm just asking you, when was it written?
I don't know, I didn't have anything to do with crafting it.
So it's probably a number of years old and it's changed a couple of times.
This is out of our website, so it's current. I mean, this is, well, I don't know, we have not changed it. Is that correct?
That is from our, that is from our current comprehensive plan, which we are now at the 10-year mark on. So it was written 10 years ago.
So it was written 10 years
Yes.
ago? Okay.
That's fine, thank you.
I just wanted to make sure that I knew when that was written. And also, we talked about no houses above businesses in downtown, and there are a lot of homes, apartments that are already above businesses in downtown. We have not adopted the policy written about variances. We wrote it, we talked about it, but we haven't adopted it yet. So I'm still leaning on the one that we already have written, not the one that we have not adopted.
Right.
Mayor, if I could say. Sure. I think it's a fairly common, the purpose of zoning is to kind of, these rules they may seem arcane and they may seem kind of challenging, and they are, I understand that. But the general purpose of zoning is to put order in how cities grow and develop. And that's for the benefit of the citizens, so that you don't have gas stations in your neighborhood and you don't have a bowling alley when the house next door gets torn down. Conversely, we don't allow residential, or at least we have limitations on residential within the downtown commercial corridor, because it's in the public interest for the citizens to be able to purchase goods and services downtown. So there's a kind of a general rule that's fairly common, I think, throughout the country. And you planners probably, the specifics I'm sure are all different from community to community, but that's a general concept that, would you kind of agree that sort of a putting order into how things grow is the purpose of the zoning ordinance?
The way I describe a zoning ordinance is it's a tool to enact whatever it is you want to see happen. It isn't the plan, it's not a vision, it's a tool to prevent what you don't want to happen and allow what you do want to happen. That's how I describe it, yeah.
Well, thank you for that. The last thing I wanted to say is Ms. Zickert talked about, you don't need all 8 standards. I can buy that. We have a track record of both planning and zoning and us not requiring all 8. This variance fails 5 of 8. And I think I could make a decent argument that it fails 6 of 8. But I'll accept the planning department's report saying that it fails 5 of 8. How can we possibly pass a variance when it fails 5 of the 8 required standards and then not have that bleed over into another application and another building? You know, to Betsy's point, there's plenty of places in Madison within the zoning for apartments. Apartment buildings, mixed uses, all duplexes, but it seems like it's maybe not the best place to have more than 49% in the downtown corridor. And I think the model of the commercial downstairs and the residential upstairs makes abundant sense. And I think the fact that this fails on 5 of 8 and maybe even 6, I don't know how I can support it.
I'd like to call a question.
Well, there isn't a question, it's just to make a motion. But if I may, maybe Eric, you could do just a brief recap, 1-sentence statement so that Carrie is aware of what you said.
You mean start over again?
Can we set up a public hearing? No, kidding. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't notice when you left, Carrie.
You never do.
It was your point that
I'm
that this-
rendered speechless on that.
that this failed 5 of the 8 standards.
Basically, just talking about
Possibly
the standards.
6.
Okay, what did we say?
We have 8 standards. I tend to agree. We don't necessarily, maybe we have a precedent of not requiring all 8.
That's exactly right.
But this particular variance, by the planning department's own report, fails 5 of the 8.
Okay.
It only meets 3 of the 8, and I think I could make a compelling case that one of those other ones, it would fail also. But at least we'll accept the report as is, and I don't know how we can accept a variance that fails 5 of our 8 standards. It kind of renders the, and especially, you know, I will say in the past when we've done maybe a majority of variance, maybe we've passed something that has maybe half of them met and half of them not. It really applies to smaller variances. It's the neighbor next to you who wants their pool moved 4 feet closer to the property line than what is allowed, or someone's shed needs to come closer to the house. That's really that's when we've allowed only 4 maybe of 8 to be met. It's those things. This is an impactful, big scale change that is going to have a visual and use importance to the city of Madison if we approve this. And I just can't, I think it would gut the integrity of our zoning to approve a variance that fails on 5 of the 8 standards.
So could I ask Molly a question? Has it failed 5 of the standards? I mean, it went from planning to HPC, from HPC to zoning and planning.
HPC has different standards than the planning and zoning. So when I prepare the staff reports, I just pull the standards from the specific, this one would be the variance section of the ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I would say that 5 out of the 8 standards failed. Or, yeah.
Just to add, the staff report is like any other element in the packet that you have before you. It is a piece of evidence for your consideration, as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission conversation and vote, all of the public comment. Those are all elements for you to consider. And so you all determine, based on the language you use in your vote, whether you all agree whether it meets the standard or doesn't meet the standard. This is a staff person's recommendation and opinion on whether it does or does not, but it is ultimately up to you all to, that's why we put the language in here for you to either reiterate or change whether you believe it meets the standard or does not, because you ultimately are the body that has to proclaim that.
Yeah, I agree with that, and there have been times when I've disagreed with specific standards.